Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily for a Wednesday afternoon, another game day edition because the Jets are back at it tonight with the moms in attendance, coming off that 4-3 win last night in the Shark Tank, taking on the Anaheim Ducks. We are expecting Eric Comrie to get the start for the Winnipeg Jets after Connor Hellebuck played last night. We won't probably have any definitive information from Anaheim, as the team will not have a morning skate traveling last night after the game. But if we do get information on that, we'll let you know on the potential lineup. Of course, I would say there's a possibility that we might see Nikolai Ehlers tonight, considering Nikita Chibrikov blocked that shot last night, got moved down to the fourth line. Arniel, as we'll mention, Coach Arniel mentioned that he was a little bit banged up. We'll stay on top of that, but it might be closer to game time, a late one tonight, 9 p.m., that we get a little more clarity. And I imagine there won't really be any clarity until shortly before the game tonight. But we will break down last night's victory over the San Jose Sharks. Ken Wiebe's going to join us. And there's been a pretty busy off-season week in the Canadian Football League. But we'll have one more visit from our pal Geoff Hamilton before Christmas, welcoming in the Hammer a little later on. And a WST favorite, Jeff Fienberg. We're going to dive into a bunch of NFL talk. And I didn't even realize this was happening yesterday. I always love talking a little golf with Fienberg. It was the showdown yesterday between Rory and Scotty Scheffler, Bryson and Brooks. That being said, it wasn't on television in Canada, so it was almost like it didn't exist. But NFL talk later on in the program with the always popular Jeff Fienberg on the show. Listen, I'll get Michael Remis in here, and we can talk about last night's win for the Jets. Just before we do that, welcome to everybody with us on YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We always appreciate it. And hit that thumbs up for today's episode. And welcome to all the podcast listeners as well, making us a part of your day. Just off the top, I will mention that we sold out all the tickets for the WST section for Saturday night, but luckily there were a few more seats elsewhere in the section that have been open and added. So if you want to join us for the WST holiday game up in section 316, go to winnipegjets.com/WST, click on Minnesota, and get any remaining tickets. You'll be able to get in a little early if you would like. When you get there, there's the hangar bar just outside the section 316 in the corner there. We'll set up shop there before the game, so you can pop by, see all your friends from the chat, and myself and Michael. I know Connor and Liz will be the game. I'm sure they'll pop down to say hi to everybody. And we'll get festive before the big game against the Minnesota Wild on Saturday night. So again, winnipegjets.com/WST for you podcast listeners. Always love it when the podcast listeners come out because obviously they're not as able to participate live with us each and every day. But you'll certainly be able to participate with us in 316 in the upper bowl for the Jets and Wild as the Jets look to get the brooms out for the season and sweep their rivals after going 2-0 in the earlier games this season. Also want to thank the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Shout out to our friends at Hockey Manitoba and Hockey Canada. Don't forget the the Ultimate 50-50 draw is open right now for the first draw, which is December 26th for the World Juniors. We'll tell you about that a little later on. Of course, Rollies Transfer, Manitoba Battery, fansfirst.ca, the Winnipeg Jets, Princess Auto, Coolbet. Great night last night, and shout out to everyone that joined us for the Coolbet Poker Tourney. We'll look forward to many more of those coming up in 2025. Of course, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, and we'll get to a why not question of the day for the gang at Not Autocorp down at Waverly and McGillivray as well. Remis, what's up?
Hey, what's going on? I'm feeling good, a little sleepy after last night's late one, but hey, it was worth it watching the Jets come back and win in regulation. Thought we were headed for overtime, but I think in the early games you were talking about Patrick Laine's hat trick, but Kyle Connors certainly put on a show. Man, that guy can shoot. That go ahead, I don't know which one was nicer. The go ahead was amazing, and he actually tied Blake Wheeler for third all time for goals by Winnipeg Jets. So big one last night, big win. Feeling good today, and I'm ready to do it all again this evening.
We'll get into all of that, and we will do it again this evening. I don't know what it is with me right now. Maybe it was just the schedule of the games on the weekend with the Saturday and then the full Sunday, and then another day off for the Jets, and they've been playing so much. I don't know what it is, dude, but every day this week I have woken up, and when you wake up and you kind of first become conscious and you get your bearings, and normally, I don't know about you, but I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do today, or this is what's next. I have thought it's the weekend 3 straight days waking up.
Come on. It's it's Christmas season. You got time off. I'll have a couple days off next week, so maybe you are just in. I've seen a lot of memes. Like, this is the week where no one does anything at work, right? I mean, we don't have a regular office job here, so it's a bit different. But I think if you're going into the office, this is where you're just counting down until the time off.
I guess maybe I'm mentally already kind of thinking about a few of those days. But listen, I'm fired up for the weekend. This is my favorite week of the year. Usually is the week between Christmas and New Year's. You've got a couple extra days off. You always inevitably see a bunch of friends that are, Winnipeg natives that are probably back visiting that maybe are elsewhere. And there's always fun games. And we've got that this year. The Jets play the Sens, another Saturday night game. Been a great, great month for the Jets for Saturday night hockey and a little Canadian content. Another one anthem game. And then the New Year's Eve game on the 30th is the off-season champions, Nashville Predators, coming in. So that will be fun. But yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, and even last night, it kind of felt like, it was like a Friday night game. And that, no, it's not. Never mind, is it not the weekend? We're not even halfway through the weekend. It's freaking Wednesday. That being said, good spirits are high, certainly all amongst the traveling group with the Winnipeg Jets after that win yesterday against the San Jose Sharks. And I'll say this right off the bat, Remo, and I know people just think of San Jose as this bottom feeder team that was historically bad last year. I did not have a lot of good things to say about this rebuild that the Sharks have been doing with Mike Greer. It seemed like, and Ted Remis said this yesterday, that Hurdle trade last year to Vegas seemed like it was the kind of the final piece of them moving on to this next incarnation of Sharks hockey. They got a lot of really good young talent on that team. And we'll kind of dive into what the Jets did, and we'll talk about it with Ken coming up. Macklin Celebrini is an absolute stud. And, we hear this term so often, a generational talent. I mean, every year there's a new generational talent. I think Celebrini might actually be the one. When they had that power play, when you're watching your team go up against, at Oilers or something like that, you're just on the edge of your seat. Celebrini with the puck last night, at 5-on-5 at times as well, but especially on the power play, was absolutely terrifying. And I'm doubling down on my take yesterday. I think it's more likely that Celebrini will be on the Olympic team next year than Bedard, not ruling Bedard out. That was a treat to watch, and we missed him earlier this season when those two teams played. Obviously, focusing on the Jets, happy with the win and what they were able to do, and we'll get to a lot of good. Some things that might like to have been a little bit better. But the biggest takeaway last night was, holy crap, is this kid good? 18 years old, and was one of the best players on the ice last night.
Yeah, he scored that goal. Very sneaky backhand, kind of did it in stride while stick handling. Weren't really expecting it. Hell, I don't know if Hellebuck really saw it either. A guy right in front of him. Great to watch. And yeah, that power play that they had in the final minutes of the game where Nino got a check to the head, which he really did not agree with. It was tough to see on the replay there. But that power play looked good. And yeah, he's scary shooting the puck, handling the puck. And I think him and Will Smith, the other Will Smith, are a nice foundation there. And hopefully they can do the things right. And they're not going to be stuck like the Buffalo Sabres here, haven't been in the playoffs since 2011. And the Sharks, it's been some dark years for them. But I think the future looks pretty good with a guy like Macklin Celebrini.
Hey, just on Buffalo and hand up. I mean, I do the lock shop every day. We do picks for Coolbet here. I mean, we make a lot of picks. There's some good ones. There's some bad ones. My slump buster parlay hunch, which you supported me on,
I thought it was a great pick. Yeah,
was an absolute disaster yesterday. Nashville, congratulations, Preds. Just 9th win of the season. Well done. A 2-0 shutout of the New York Rangers. But, oh, my God, is it going from bad to worse for Buffalo. Great news for Patrick Laine, who was shooting missiles on the power play, 3 power play goals for the hat trick. But a day after the owner coming into the message with the Buffalo Sabres that the solution is right here in this room, they did not have the solution last night, and they got humbled 6-1 by the Montreal Canadiens. I have a lot of love for fans in Buffalo, the way they support their teams, what they have been through. This is now cruel and unusual punishment on the people of Buffalo. Thank God they have the Bills in the season they're having right now.
Yeah, I feel bad. They got a lot of hockey fans. They just want a winner. And I think it shows that you can have all these, number one picks like they had Jack Eichel and Rasmus Dahlin, and it just hasn't worked out. It is more salt in the wound for them that a number of their players have gone into other organizations and won Stanley Cups, whether it's Ryan O'Reilly, Sam Reinhart, Jack Eichel. And you look at their roster from 2017, they had all those players have moved on and have done really well. And I don't know why it hasn't worked there, when you have all these draft picks, but I think it's just a lesson that, hey, you can try to tank and they're just in perpetual, out of the playoffs. And that's a team that loves the city that loves the Sabres. You want to see them do well, and it just hasn't. And I thought, the owner comes in and, gives them a target. I thought it would give them a boost. It had the opposite effect. They lost 6-1 to Montreal. I think Montreal was due for a bounce back after they had the loss to the Penguins there. And then the Rangers, it's kind of the same thing. Chris Jury's doing all this public, we're going to trade, where everyone's on the block, and they've really just faltered, and they lost 2-0 to the offseason champion Nashville Predators, who are kind of in a similar boat as well. So that was kind of the story around the NHL yesterday, that these two teams, Rangers and Sabres, who are free-falling, think management steps in and says something, they're going to have a rebound. It was the opposite. So we'll see what happens with them moving forward, if any trades are made from either team. But I think the Sabres are in a bit more trouble than the Rangers here, but either one is not looking good.
The Sabres are in an absolute free fall right now, and you wonder whether they even have the guy in Kevin Adams that should be pulling the trigger on any significant moves moving forward because of where he's got them so far. Their rebuild's sort of a finished product because they've signed Cousins and Dahlin and Power. I mean, all of these young players to long-term deals. And I guess the big question is what happens with Bowen Byram? Of course, they did that trade with Middlestat last year. Byram's going to need a new contract next season. I mean, how much can you put into the blue line and young defensemen at that? And, might he see himself on the way elsewhere, somewhere else in the NHL? Anyways, ugly stuff in Buffalo. Maybe we'll touch a little bit more on elsewhere around the league. But as far as last night goes, listen, this wasn't a masterpiece by any stretch. I mean, I thought the Jets had a bit of a slower start. Certainly the Sharks carried the number of shots opportunities, attempts in the first couple periods. But again, it was sort of on and off. The one thing that we saw gain steam throughout the game was that top line. And I thought that, Scheifele had a monster game. You talked about Kyle Connor with his 2 goals right out of the gate. I mean, he was a shark in the water. I thought Gabriel Velarde was really, really good yesterday. And that's the sort of game that if you get most nights from the Jet top line and they generate those sort of opportunities and high danger chances, which the Jets did have more than the Sharks in that game, that you'll win more often than not. The funny thing was, Reem, and maybe this game looks a lot different if our pal Georgiev wasn't as good as he was in the middle of the game last night. I mean, there were plenty. I mean, as much as the Sharks had the shots, the Jets held the advantage in high danger chances, and he made a couple of big-time saves in close, particularly on that top line, who did score the 2 goals. And obviously the power play was absolutely lethal last night. I thought Georgiev sort of held them in, but it wasn't like the Sharks weren't getting some of theirs as well. I mean, this was not one of the best games Connor Hellebuck's played. I think there was a couple that, maybe don't normally go in, or maybe they don't look the same going in. But overall, I mean, the Sharks are getting a lot better. They make you earn that 2 points, and the Jets really did need to step it up, led by the top line. And, of course, the captain, Adam Lowry, with just a phenomenal deflection on the winning goal to make it 4-3 in regulation. And I'm looking right now. That's Lowry's 9th goal of the season. He's got 20 points in 33 games. Adam Lowry right now, Remis, is on pace for a 50-point season, which would smash his previous career high of 36 points in 82 games in the 2022-23 season. And, of course, he did it in front of his mom.
Yeah, big mom's trip. I love the, we had the dad's mentors trip last year. This year, the mom's trip. They're all in the box there celebrating. They got the head signs there. They're flipping back and forth with the young pictures. It looks good on TV, so I did enjoy their celebration. Adam Lowry having a great season. I mean, the guy doesn't get any power play time, Hustler, and on his way for a career. He's got 9 goals. That's one more than Steven Stamkos, who signed the big contract with the offseason champion Nashville Predators. And for me, that power play, it was so amazing to watch. That first goal that Scheifele scored, I mean, talk about putting it on a tee, the passing with Connor, Velarde, Perfetti. I mean, so it was beautiful to watch that. Like, you got out of your seat for that Scheifele, for the first Scheifele goal. And Kyle Connor as well. I mean, his goal on the power play. And for me, the turning point of the game was, okay, it's 3-2. The Jets are battling back. They've got a late power play. And for the first minute, they had possession. They had a chance. But then for some reason, they initiated a goal review. And I wasn't really sure why. And I don't think, there was a chance where they had a couple whacks at us, but I didn't think it went in. And they reviewed it. And even Dan and Kevin were on the broadcast saying, we not really sure why this is being reviewed either, but it gave the first power play, gave that whole unit a chance for a breather, a chance for a reset, and they came back and had another minute. It gave the penalty killers, their top penalty kill, I'm sure, a reset as well. However, I'll take the Jets power play at, operating 30% or whatever it is this year. And yeah, they went around, and Kyle Connor sniping at short side. We've seen him do that this year. It was almost like a no-look shot. Just some beautiful images from last night in terms of like how nice you can make a goal with the Scheifele from Perfetti and Velarde, and Connor from Velarde. I mean, what a pass from Velarde too, to get it under a guy's stick back to him. I mean, that power play, when they weren't winning, the power play wasn't going, and there it was yesterday, 2 for 2 on the power play. San Jose did get a power play goal of their own, but it was on, Celebrini. He scored on the back end.
Bad news, Remis. We're wasting our time talking about this. Let's go to the chat. Here's Julian. Top line looked good against the Sharks, but they're not seeing the Sharks in the playoffs. Okay, I had to pop into the KNR chat last night and say the same thing. Like, is this game in mid-December against the San Jose Sharks, is this the game that is the referendum on the 2025 postseason? What the hell are we doing here, folks? Like, if you go out and play well against a team that you should beat and you do it, and in that case, that line absolutely did, Like, why are we shitting on? Oh, yeah, but it was against the Sharks. It doesn't mean anything. Listen, if it doesn't mean anything, see you later. Pop in the first week in April, and we'll get ready for the playoffs. We're in December right now. We're in the first half of the season. Like, every game cannot be a referendum on the playoffs in the middle of the regular season, especially against a team like that. Like, what are we supposed to say? Come up, oh, well, they did all this, but the team sucks. But this team wasn't a playoff team. What's going to happen in the playoffs? We'll find out in April. We will find out in April. Right now, you go out in an NHL hockey game to win the game and get 2 points. And that's what they did. And getting on fans or getting on people for recognizing good things that happened in the game, oh, it's not the playoffs. I mean, honest to God, what are you doing? That was a topic last night on K&R. And I'm like, are we going to do this every single game all season long until the playoffs? Oh, it's nice they did this. They played well, but it's not the playoffs. Folks, live in the moment. Enjoy the regular season. Enjoy the win. Criticize when the team doesn't play well and what they need to do better, and move on to the next damn game. What the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, I think I see a lot of people. I think Rennie does that on Kenny and Rennie. He's like, well, they won against the Sabres, and then he dumped. You can ask Ken, who's coming up. I mean, he dumped all over their performance, and I think we can agree. Like, the performance wasn't the best, but they got the 2 points, and I am pulling up the NHL standings right now, Huss, and I'm sorting by points. Oh, look who's number one, the Winnipeg Jets. They're winning the games that they're supposed to win. That's what you want.
Jet
they're
fans,
getting
you're
the
not
points.
supposed to appreciate this at all. Don't be happy about it. It's not the playoffs. It doesn't matter. Guess what it does? It wins in the regular season. That's the goal. That's how you progress. And I guarantee you, when we're getting ready, assuming this team makes the playoffs, which they certainly look like they will and should, when we're getting ready for game one of the first round of the playoffs, we're not going to be talking about a Tuesday night game against the San Jose Sharks. Yes, that's all true. But for right now, game by game, you see who's playing well, who's standing out, what is good. I'll tell you one thing that does translate to the playoffs that the Jets showed last night that's going to help them come playoff time is their power play. And that was something that was an Achilles heel last year of this team that is completely flipped this season. And I will counter to all of that. That's the sort of thing that, if you continue to do that in the playoff, that'll help you win games. They didn't do it last year. They got murdered on the PK, and it was a problem. So perspective's important. I mean, I guess if you just want to shit on literally everything and are staring at a team in first place overall in the National Hockey League and say, well, it's not the playoffs, you do you. But I mean, I think the vast majority of people are appreciative of the way the team's playing, are pretty fired up that they're in first place, are enjoying these wins. And you know what? Don't feel bad about it, Jet fans, if you're doing that. So anyways, I just wanted to get that off my chest right now because I saw that. And Julian, I love you. We love all the comments in chat. But I mean, for crying out loud, it drives me absolutely crazy. It's like you can't do anything for 82 games without people referencing the playoffs. Guess what? It's December. We know it's not the playoffs right now. Let's continue to move on. We'll talk about the Ducks game. I got news for you folks. This game tonight against the Ducks probably isn't going to have any impact on the playoffs in April as well. What will have impact on where the team is if they can get 2 points. And that's what we're going to get to from Ken Wiebe in a minute. Let's quickly hear from Arneil, who spoke after the game. Pleased with the way the team battled back in the third period. Lots to like about the game last night. Some other things, as we pointed out, that they would like to improve on. But here's Scott Arneil on the game last night, a 4-3 win in San Jose.
You know what? Obviously, the young, quick team, San Jose, and their transition game. We really try to get away from letting them get into their rush game, and we were trying to clog up the middle as much as we could. Our power play stepped up big time, and they kind of, they weren't going away. And then, that third period there, it was we got back to kind of, doing something. We gave up a rush goal. Obviously, we got caught, but I like the way we, stayed in the game till the very end, and that was a big goal with about a minute and 15 seconds left.
Yeah, an absolute beauty from Lowry last night to win. There was a swap in the lines. We saw Alex Iafallo move into Chibrakov's spot. And Chibrikov missed a part of the first period after blocking that shot early on. Here's what Arniel had to say about the Chibrikov coming back and taking that puck.
Yeah, that's just the kind of kid he is. He got hit pretty hard, and he came back in here and walked it off and kind of got some ice on it, got himself back. But it's going to be pretty painful tomorrow, I'm sure.
Later in the game, you swapped Iafallo and Chibrikov. Was that related to the shot block, or were you looking for a spark?
No, I mean, a little bit of that. There was also some of the matchups, how San Jose was kind of putting. They were really looking to, have their sort of top line against those guys. So they just Al's kind of glue, but Chibi was hurting a little bit there.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. And one more, again, it may shock some people, certainly if you read our chat, but the Jets are back in first. Here's what Scott Arniel had to say about being back on top.
Well, this is kind of the schedule. It's kind of the way it's jockeyed around. I mean, we're not real concerned about, we're standing in the league right now. We're worried about, our Central Division. We have, 4 teams that aren't going away, and it's going to be this way right to the end of the year. So we just got to take care of our business. Real happy to get the first win for the mums and the sisters here. To get that one, I know they're going to be feeling pretty good about it. So we'll move into Anaheim and hopefully get 2.
Any update on Nikolai Ehlers? Do you expect him to play in Anaheim tomorrow?
That's tomorrow's decision. We'll talk tomorrow.
So, I mean, again, that's from post-game, but it's a decision today. He certainly didn't say that that's not happening. So, considering that Chibrikov took, we'll see how he's feeling today after taking that puck. Sometimes a little different once you get that skate off. Maybe we will see Ehlers in tonight. Adam Lowry, obviously, was the hero late. Big smile on his face to get the game winner anytime, but especially with his mom in attendance. Here's what the captain had to say about the game last night.
There were certain times in our game we liked, and I thought San Jose played a really good game. They were fast, aggressive, good in the neutral zone, and it was frustrating at times. But I think our power play has been unbelievable all year. But 2 power play goals again. Casey, what a shot, and it kind of was able to get us back in the game, give us some life late in the third, and then big kill. I think that's a huge momentum swing too. You take a penalty with 6 or so minutes left, and you get the kill. You keep the game. You're tied. You give yourself a chance to win.
All right, Lowry wasn't was one of many that was watching what Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde were up to last night. Here's what he had to say about the Jets' number 1 line on one last night.
Obviously the puck movement on the power play, but they carried that over to 5-on-5. It was a great play on Casey's first goal. He could have had 4 or 5. He was all over it. They generated some momentum. They were, it seemed like in the first 2 periods they were, our consistent line that had some of zone pressure. The rest of us struggled to kind of establish our forecheck and get it in the zone. Consistently. I think, for the most part we were better in the third, but I think start to finish, clearly they were our best line.
And here's just one more from the captain I mentioned on a 50-point pace, which would smash his career high for points, as well as a career high goal pace right now. Here's Lowry on the goal scoring surge as he popped a big one, his 9th of the year.
Just a pure sniper. I don't know. It always feels like I go through hot and cold streaks, and it seems like the puck's going in for me right now, and it's a great shot by Smokey. I'm just doing my best to get into Georgiev's eyes, and luckily I get a stick on it. But last game, makes an unbelievable pass. I just have to tap it in. So a lot of credit goes to my line mates and the D pair that I'm out there with.
All right, so there is Adam Lowry. We'll talk more about it with Ken Wiebe, who's going to join us in just a moment. I mentioned this off the top of the show, gang, but grab your tickets now in time for the first draw for the Canada's ultimate 50-50 draw for the World Junior Hockey Championships. There is a draw in every single province. So when you buy your tickets through hockeymanitoba.myshopify.com, we've got a link in the description. You can get a single bullet for 1 ticket all the way up to 999 tickets with a great deal on those, and different spots in between. 50% goes to the pot, 50% goes to promoting and supporting grassroots hockey initiatives to grow the game right here in Manitoba. So we've all been jealous looking at these crazy pots around Canada at previous World Juniors that we couldn't get in on. Now, no matter where you are in Canada, you can. Ours is put on by Hockey Manitoba. hockeymanitoba.myshopify.com. Get those tickets. Might make some great stocking stuffers for the family on December 25th. And then when the tournament gets going on the 26th, Boxing Day, you'll be in the action for the first draw. Again, link is in the description. Grab those tickets today. Big happy holidays to our friends at Rolly's Transfer. Family owned and operated in Winnipeg for over 60 years. They are the most trusted name in the moving industry. Famous for their service and the white glove treatment for moving Manitobans for decades. If you have a move coming up in 2025, get on over to their website at rollies.com. Click on the request an estimate feature in the top right corner. Let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved, and the friendly Rollies staff will contact you very quickly with a great quote and get you locked in to take as much of the stress out of a normally very stressful time as it is. For your next move in 2025, get the white glove treatment from the experts. Rollies Transfer, the most trusted moving name in Manitoba. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollies.com. And cooling down a little bit again, and we got the blast last week. We know what's up. Listen, Manitoba Battery, our friends are ready to go for Christmas. And this is a great time to give a Christmas gift that matters with the help of Manitoba Battery. You don't want your loved ones stranded in the cold with a vehicle that won't start. Make sure they're equipped to handle what's ever thrown at them this winter with the NOCO 1000 amp booster pack for only $139.50, or get them a set of 25-foot booster cables for just $65. You can also treat yourself to a great deal and grab that ice fishing flasher battery you need, or that sled battery that needs to be replaced. And all for the best prices in the city, period, beating the pants off the big box stores. Give a Christmas gift that matters this year. Learn more at manitobabattery.com. 2 locations to serve you, Logan Avenue and their new spot in 2024 on Dovercourt in the south end of the city. And just before we bring in Ken Wiebe, fellas, if you're looking to up your menswear game in 2025, you know where to go. F Apparel, of course, at 190 Smith Street. Right now, though, if maybe that special someone's stuck on what to get you, give them a little nudge and let them know that if you pop down to F Apparel right now, every gift card of $100 or more will come with a 15% bonus. So a great deal, free money, and the best custom men's clothing in town to make you look sharp in 2025. Again, 15% bonus right now on any gift card of $100 or more at F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown, or you can check them out and purchase online at that's EPH apparel.com. All right, let's bring in Ken Wiebe of K&R fame and the Winnipeg Free Press. What's going on, Weber? How are you?
Oh, it's great to be with you. Beautiful afternoon in the neighborhood. A little cooler outside, as you mentioned, but feels like hockey weather, doesn't it?
Yeah. How late you go last night? What time did you hit the wrapper?
I think we're on the show until 1:35 or 40 a.m. So not the best sleep, but it's okay. Power through. We got another after dark today, so no complaints. No excuses, just solutions here.
Well, you look at like $1 million US tax free. Congratulations. No one would have any idea that you're off your very strict sleeping regimen.
Hey, Dennis Bernstein said there'd be no one better looking than him and Sean this week. So I don't know. We'll have to put it to a vote, I guess.
It was a direct shot. It was comedy, is what that was. Listen, takeaways from last night. A comeback win in the third period. I mean, a top line that was looking dangerous all night, and once again, Adam Lowry just continuing a career season for the Winnipeg Jets with a massive win on one of the best deflections you're going to see.
Oh, just absolutely all world, Huss. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, this is the kind of thing you hate to not be on scene for, of course, but that's the way life is at times. But both Adam Lowry and Kyle Connor sort of like poo-pooing their goals to me was hilarious. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen Adam have a better deflection. And I mean, Kyle Connor, absolute rocket ship shot that Georgiev just couldn't stop. I mean, it's a bar down special, and he's just giving it the old Bill Belichick shoulder shrug. Like, it's just kind of what he does. So I thought a couple big things, Huss. Just kind of tiptoed into the game in a lot of ways instead of the full-on cannonball even after the 2-day break. There were parts that I didn't love the offense generated, but they also didn't give up a lot. So I would say structurally, mostly sound. Obviously, a breakdown on the Zetterlund goal where Pionk was already down low, and Kyle Connor had the up top coverage and then sort of thought there was going to be a scoring chance and ended up being an odd man rush. And again, Granlund makes a really subtle pick play at the blue line that makes it even more of an odd man rush. But overall, the Jets didn't give up a whole lot. I mean, I should also say too, Neil Pionk celebrating a big moment, but he kind of got caught puck watching on the Toffoli goal. Nice pass for sure, but I mean that's a guy that Pionk couldn't check him almost every single time, Huss, right? That was just a small mental breakdown there that ended up in the back of the net. But and then the celebrating goal. I mean, yes, kudos to him for creating the lane, but I mean that's a, what is that? Is that a 1 in 100 shot that goes in? I mean, of course there was a screen by Wenberg, but I don't expect, Celebrini, who I loved watching yesterday, I don't expect he's going to score a lot of backhands on the power play from where that one went in. So overall, like defensively, I didn't mind the Jets game. Only 6 high danger chances allowed, so that's a pretty sound game. And I thought their third period, Huss, was obviously their best period. But for me, I think they need to go for a little more of a cannonball entry into the game today. Rather than tiptoeing and kind of dipping your toe in the water here in Southern California. So 2 quick things. Love the way the Lowry line played in the third period. They were a physical force. Nino Niederreiter had a great chance. Appleton really moving his feet. Lowry coming through with a big goal. But I thought that line really helped matters for the Jets. And obviously, yeah, I mean, the top line, yes, they were on for the 1 goal against with the coverage odd man rush, but man, a lot of scoring chances for them in the game. Huss, pretty wide disparity. I think 12 scoring chances for, or shots for, and then 6 against. So I thought that line was, again, a lot of the damage comes on the power play, but that line was, exceptional on a lot of fronts in that game. And they're going to need to be again today. But I would also say this too, Huss. I mean, the one little bit of caution in this scenario is that the Jets have become a little bit too reliant on the top line for me when it comes to generating offensive late. And again, Lowry's line gets the game-winning goal, and they deserve full credit for it. But to me, I think they need a little bit more from the other lines. And having said all that, I thought that Cole Perfetti, I thought that was one of his best games that he's played in a little bit of time. Obviously, exquisite pass to Mark Scheifele for the one-timer on the power play, but I like the way that Cole was looking for a shot a little bit more in the game. Huss, I think 3 shots on net, 5 shot attempts. It was almost like Ehlers-esque when he went for the old loop-de-loop there in the offensive zone. I mean, of course, he's not doing it at the same speed as we've seen Ehlers do it, but I liked how he looked for his shot in that scenario and showed his patience, and I just thought he was a little bit more involved. So, but again, I think that Nemestikov line, it needs to, the next step for them, I think they had some really good shifts. I think the next step for them will be to contribute a little bit more offense at 5-on-5 here.
I've got some good news for you, Ken. If you've been left wanting more from the second line as of late, we might be getting a change relatively soon.
Sure.
Dylan Coughlin's just been put on waivers by the Winnipeg Jets.
Okay, well then that's going to be an activation of Ehlers. It would be the next maneuver there, right?
That's certainly that's the way I read the tea leaves. What's interesting though is that it's not Chibrikov, and we talked about potentially when Ehlers is back. And listen, these are not like this just happened. Elliot Friedman tweeting out 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
that Dylan Coughlin is new on waivers, along with Ty Fellhaber from Colorado, Mark Delgado from Nashville, Grant Hutton from the Islanders, the 2 guys Wagner and Dowling cleared from yesterday. But I'll just put to you this. So how do you read these tea leaves? I would imagine that Ehlers is going to be back. What else does that mean? And why do you think it was Coghlan, who's only played the one game this year?
Yeah, I think this could be related to the injury to Chibrikov, Huss, quite frankly. That would be my first interpretation of that, without knowing and without being on scene. Again, we wouldn't have had access this morning anyway, but where he took that shot, and that would be the kind of injury that you can kind of play through it in the time, but with the, overnight, taking the gear off, and that's the kind of thing that probably is feeling a lot worse today than it did initially. So again, I was expecting Ehlers to be a game time decision today. I didn't think he would play back to back. This obviously opens the door for him to return. I mean, this is sort of like the Mark Stone scenario where, you come in and play, or you wait a few extra days and then play. I mean, at the latest, I think Ehlers plays Saturday against the Wild, but again, I don't think they make this move unless they're planning to activate Nikolai Ehlers. That's my initial interpretation, and the reason for the waiver rather than potentially just sending Chibrikov back. And again, I could be wrong. He could be in, but I think it might be that he is a little bit banged up, and you wouldn't be able to send down a player who is injured. Yeah. Now again, I don't know if he'll play today. I would think if Ehlers plays, I don't expect Chibrikov
I'm with you on
to
that.
be in the lineup.
I'm with you on that, and I think it probably gives them the opportunity to get back to the lines that we've been pretty used to seeing. We know what Scheifele's rolling out with. We know what Adam Lowry's rolling out with. I mean, as of right now, Perfetti and Vlad had Chibrikov in the place of Ehlers. Certainly expect Ehlers to go right back there, and you would think you probably end up back with that same line of AI, Barron, and Rasmus Kupari. And I guess from a short-term standpoint with this game tonight, I think the timing might be perfect to get Ehlers back in the lineup, considering this team, the guys all played last night. And he'll come back in and be a guy that will presumably be fresh, be ready to go, and look to make up for a little bit of lost time in the lineup tonight against a Duck squad.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, too, like I said, I think that the return of Ehlers would provide a little bit of that spark. I mean, the Jets, I think, 0-2 now in the back-to-backs, which, again, small sample size. But, again, you get a guy like Ehlers coming back. And let's not go crazy here. This is probably a 1 hour flight or less before the Jets last night. So this is not a taxing back-to-back, though back-to-backs are still obviously more difficult than having games in between. So I think that Ehlers will be fired up again. It sounded like he was flying around on Monday during the skate when he finally shed the non-contact jersey. So that's a good step for him. And I mean, the Jets are, they could obviously use him. I mean, this is a guy who has gotten off to an exceptional and sensational start to the season. And when I'm talking about secondary offense and complementary scoring, I mean, he's a primary scorer, but it should help get that top line a little bit of offensive support. So I think it would be a big development for the Jets, and to get him into 3 games here before the Christmas break, I think would be important for Ehlers as well, to kind of get the engine back up and running here. He's going to be eager to be back in after suffering that either ankle or knee issue against the Vegas Golden Knights in that game on November 29th. So obviously still off to one of the best starts in his career, and still obviously time to post-career numbers and continue to contribute the way that he has, at the start of the year when he was, one of the Jets' best players.
Overall, if this is sort of the end, like if Chibrikov's not in the lineup tonight and he's dinged up, and I really do think that he has sort of just shown that he's a very much an option that could come up and play in the lineup right now. Yeah. I personally expect him to go back to the Moose, but regardless, just through this period that he has popped in after Brad Lambert and he's switched spots, what have your takeaways been about Nikita Chibrikov in his first real action outside of Game 82 last year?
Yeah, he's a gamer, right? I mean, we knew this about him. He's a guy who, is a shift disturber. He gets involved physically. He's blocking shots. I mean, if that's what kind of knocks him out of the lineup, it's unfortunate for him, but it's a sign of doing the necessary things and the things that gain coaching staff's trust, being willing to get in the shot lanes and all of those things. Obviously, his offensive gifts were apparent throughout the preseason when he had a strong showing. He can really shoot it. He looks to shoot it. And again, Huss, we talked about the offense dipping a little bit in this last stretch of games. you've got a guy who's not looking to overpass. He's a guy who's looking to find the back of the net almost every time he touches the puck. I love the fact that he doesn't defer a lot, which is good. I mean, some guys need to, and that's not to say that he isn't a gifted passer, because he is. But the Jets could use a few more shoot-first players, and he's shown that he is a capable option in a top 6 scenario. Did he do enough, as some may have suggested, to earn a full-time spot in the top 6? I'm personally not there, Huss, not yet. I need to see more from him. The biggest thing with Chibrikov, we talked about it from the beginning. He's going to need to add about a quarter step, half step, whatever that number ends up being, for him to become an NHL regular. And you can only do that after sustained amount of time, like quarter of a season, half a season, 3/4 of a season, full season. But to me, he's shown that he's not far away. At the latest, I see him being a full-time player by next fall. But I do think this will not be the last that we see of Chibrikov. And again, we're just making some level of assumption that right now he has, is still very much in the equation to be on the fourth line. But I just don't think that he's done enough to knock the fourth liners out of contention, because of the penalty killing element for all 3 players that are on that fourth line right now. And that's Barron, that's Kupari, that's Alex Iafallo. Now, having said all that, Huss, I mean, have the Jets coaching staff been having some conversations and wondering if maybe Chibrikov's on the second power play and maybe he's knocking out one of those penalty killers? I mean, that's possible that he's under consideration, but I don't think that he is, supplanted any of those guys just yet. But I've definitely, it's full value. I mean, Huss, we've talked about this about all players. We've talked about this about Brad Lambert. We talked about this about Ville Heinola, and although the situations for those 2 players are definitely different. If you're trying to take someone's job at the NHL level, you need to come in and showcase a skill set that puts you ahead of a player that is an established player on the depth chart. And what Chibrikov has done is shown that he has some of the qualities and capabilities to be in consideration for one of those jobs. Like I said, I don't think he outright won the job yet, but he's definitely put himself, to the front of the check-in line, Huss, is how I would put it. And again, I liked a lot of what Brad Lambert did outside of not popping, that empty netter against Chicago. It wasn't an actual empty netter, but the net was empty. You know what I mean? But he's come in and shown exactly what his strengths are. And he has made sure that his, deficiencies are things that he needs to learn at the NHL level, which is defense. And that's the case for most young players, especially one who's only playing a second year of hockey in North America. I think that he has minimized the impact of any defensive, I'm not going to say shortcomings, but the adjustment period to the speed of the NHL game and knowing your routes and all of those things and knowing where to be. He's done a very good job on that front. I guess, like I said, the only thing he needs to do is have a longer, pathway in order to showcase his skill set a little bit more. But I would just put it this way. This is not the last we're going to see of Nikita Chibrikov, whether he comes out of the lineup today or Saturday or whenever that time comes. He's definitely put himself onto the radar. And as my pal Sean told you earlier in the year, I mean, this is what the Jets have been building towards. Now they have 2 capable top 6 players who are available for call-up when a top 6 position is open. You're not, shuffling guys around the lineup or, calling up Dominic Toninato or AJF or Jared Anderson-Dolan or some of the other guys who have NHL time and would move into the fourth line and then move up somebody like Alex Iafallo or someone else who is capable of doing that. But that's what organizations are looking for. The organizational depth has allowed Chibrikov to push himself close to the front of the line, if not at the front of the line, for top 6 recalls. But the difference for me here is that Chibrikov has also shown a willingness to engage, and that physical presence that he has shown and his willingness to mix it up and go to the blue paint, that has allowed him to be under consideration for not only top 6 work, Huss, but for fourth line duty, if they're looking for a spark on the offensive side specifically.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just me, but after the early success that Chibrikov had on that line, going to the net, scoring in those first 2 games, it seemed like Cole Perfetti was around the net a lot more the last little bit. I'm not sure whether that's
contagious, right? Yeah, it's contagious.
Contagious, being pushed a little bit, knowing that Nikolai Ehlers is back. I mean, whatever the case is. Now, I want to get to this. This is a comment from Rob Mahoney. The coaching staff and management believe in Logan Stanley. So like it or hate it, he's the guy they're going with this season at 3LD. Now, I'll be honest. I'm not saying that they don't believe in him or aren't trying to give him an opportunity to show that the faith that they put in him will be rewarded. I'm sure that's the best case scenario. I'm not sure that's where we're at right now. I'm not sure if you saw Kevin Sawyer on with us earlier this week, but I thought Sawyer laid this out very well. And this is a guy that knows about being on the periphery of the lineup.
Sure.
He kind of said that right now, you can certainly make the argument, and he would, that what the Jets are putting out right now on the blue line probably does not technically give them the best chance to win. But this is the point in the season, especially with what they've been able to do so far in the standings with the wins that they put up. It gives them the opportunity to give Logan Stanley and to give Ville Heinola opportunities to play, to show that they are ready to take that step up to be those guys. I personally don't think either of them have really done that at this point. We talk about depth in the organization, and I do think that they've got a little bit more on the blue line. Now, with Dylan Coghlan being gone, I think he was always the 8th guy, so I don't think that changes it. But assuming the Jets add a blue liner at some point before the trade deadline, I would argue that I don't think either of those players are in the Jets' top 6. But how do you gauge the way the team is handling the blue line right now, and in particular, the opportunities being afforded, Stan maybe more so than Ville, but both of those, how they're doing it, and what both of those players need to do to be what Rob Mahoney said, and that is that third left shot defenseman come playoff time, assuming Colin Miller's on the right side?
Yeah, Huss, I mean, it's complicated. I mean, in the relationship status, it's complicated, right? I mean, I know that some people have had enough of the experiment, but guess what? The Jets have not had enough of the experiment. That's why the experiment is ongoing. I would say that nobody has gone out and said, this is my job and you can't take it away from me. And that includes Ville Heinola as well. And some people are upset about the leash. Some people are upset about the partner. I mean, that's fine. But when you're in that situation, you don't get to choose what partner you're with. Hassan, as I told you, I mean, I didn't particularly think Ville played overly well when Dylan DeMello was his partner and Logan Stanley was sitting in the penalty box for 20 minutes a couple games ago. So I don't think it's as simple as who his partner is. This is exactly what we were talking about with Chibrikov. We haven't heard Chibrikov complaining. I mean, yes, his situation is obviously better. He got to play in the top 6, but he produced in that scenario. So the Jets need more from all of the people, in the rotation. I think Colin Miller has done an exceptional job of coming in and providing some stability. I liked his game, liked his last couple of games. Is he solidified as the number 3 right D going into the playoffs? Absolutely not. I mean, he was a extra for the majority of the stretch run and into the playoffs last year, came in and did a nice job. But I mean, Scott Arniel's dropping some breadcrumbs, Huss, for us. I mean, he laid it out for us that he said in the summertime he had talked about Heinola and Stanley as a pairing. He also talked about Colin Miller knowing his situation when he signed his contract. So to me, there were no guarantees given to Colin Miller that he would play more. He would be given every opportunity to show what he can do, and he has done that. And like I said, I've liked a lot about his game. But when you're in a scenario like Colin Miller, you're on trial almost every single night. So, and I think that's the ability of being a veteran. It's way easier for Colin Miller to handle that job of in and out than it is for Ville Heinola or Logan Stanley. Do I think Stanley has done enough to say he's won the job? No. And I don't know that Rob Mahoney was saying that, but it's clear that he has, in the pecking order, he is ahead of Ville Heinola in this right now. Whether you agree with it or not in the chat room, that's, until you get to fill out the lineup card like Scott Arniel, I mean, you're allowed to have an opinion, but it doesn't mean that you're right. But having said all that, I think both Logan Stanley and Ville Heinola can play better. And Huss, you and I have talked about this before. This isn't, in some ways, they are competing for the same job, but not in all ways, because the Jets are looking to have more size on the blue line. That's obvious. I mean, we know it from everything that Scott Arniel has said going into the year. And some of their defensemen who are very, very capable are not big defensemen. Now, is Logan Stanley playing with that size and edge every single game? No, he's not. I mean, he had 4, Tyler Toffoli had 4 whacks at it, and he was the closest person to him. And I would also say this, although, the penalty killers are moving around, I didn't particularly like that Logan Stanley left Alex Wenberg to screen Connor Hellebuck on that backhand from Macklin Celebrini. I think that if your job is to help clear the front of the net, he needs to do a better job in that front. But you could say that about many players on many teams. But right now, no one has won any job. Logan is getting a longer runway than Ville Heinola, and I know that upsets some people, but like I said, Ville Heinola has not done enough in the games that he has played to say that he is ahead of Logan Stanley either. I mean, neither one of them has established themselves and planted the flag in the ground and said, you can't take me out of the lineup. So is it a fair game? No. I mean, is Logan Stanley's leash longer? Absolutely, it has been to this point, but that's because he is competing for a penalty-killing job and a job of clearing the front of the net. Ville Heinola is more of an offensive guy who, unless Neil Pionk's not back next year as a pending UFA, that job's not available right now, Huss. So, could you make a case that he could somehow beat out Logan Stanley for the 3 left D position? Yes, I mean, that's possible. But the Jets are looking for a certain kind of player for that third pairing job. But having said all that, I think we could still see a little bit of runway for Ville Heinola beside Colin Miller. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if it came today, Huss, to be honest. I mean, this is a game against Anaheim where you're looking for some fresh legs. Logan Stanley's had like 10 or 11 straight now, maybe even 12. I could see Ville Heinola, coming into the game, whether it's playing with Stanley or playing with Miller. So we'll see what happens at puck drop time or at the pregame warmup. But this competition is very much ongoing. And Huss, as you mentioned, I mean, it will be shocking to both of us if that competition is only including those 2 players as we get closer to March, right? I mean, we're expecting the Jets to add, so that's only going to complicate matters for those 2 players.
Well, that's why. I mean, I think that at some point in April, and we can remember this one, Remo, for a clip. Like,
mark it down.
all of our conversations about Ville and Logan Stanley. Like, I don't think either of those guys have done much to really help their cause, to be honest with you. I mean, Ville he's a guy that I think needs to show more offensively. I mean, he's certainly not in for the same reasons why they're putting Logan Stanley in. We haven't seen a lot of that. And I mean, Stan is at a point where, listen, if he doesn't play with more bite in his game and do the things that he is in there to do, I don't see him being, a player. Like, once this team
he's
gets
not going to
healthy,
be in, Huss. You're bang on. If he's not playing a more physical game in the next, I don't know if it's 2 games, 10 games, 20 games. If he's not adding more edge, he's not in the lineup. I mean,
for sure. Listen, and I mean, like, I don't know. Are we idiots for thinking that anything is going to change? I mean, this isn't a 21-year-old player. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. And at some point, you just, I mean, that sort of thing, that level of physicality, that level of bite, that level of nasty that they want in that player. I mean, you can't just invent it, and it hasn't happened. But I guess the point is, right now, if Dylan Samberg is back, and I know you guys are talking about the playoffs a lot last night, even though we're in the middle of December.
Oh yeah.
If we're starting the playoffs tomorrow and Dylan Samberg is healthy, neither of these guys are in the lineup, right?
Yeah, I mean, my answer is the same as it was last
Hayden
week.
Fleury's ahead of both of those
Hayden
guys.
Fleury is ahead of them. I mean, have there been some hiccups? Sure, but there's hiccups for all of those guys, and I feel like there's fewer hiccups for Fleury, even though his minutes have been much higher. So, again, the thing with Stanley is that you see flashes, right? Okay, you get an early hit on Pasternak in the game where the Jets blow out the Bruins, but you need to see that almost every game.
It can't be once a game.
And it can't be once every 3 games or whatever it is, right? So, it just, I know you've been saying square peg and round hole and all those things, but the issue for the Jets is they don't really have another defenseman in the organization that has the potential of bringing those qualities, unless we're talking about Elias Solomonson. And that's a guy who's on the shelf with a serious injury, even though it's probably not as serious as it could have been. And he's at least a year away, probably. So again, I think the Jets will be shopping on the back end. I don't think this is any riveting undertaking here. This is what we expected going into the year, but again, and fans don't like it, but the development aspect is on display. And hey, I get it. Some people think that the development is over and that it will never happen for Logan Stanley, and that's okay for them to think that. And it's up to Logan Stanley to prove otherwise. But right now, the Jets are in a position where, like you said, with banked points, you can roll out both of those guys at various points and see if one of them wins the job and plants the flag, right? Otherwise, and even if one of them would plant the flag, I would still be shocked if they don't add, because the Jets' goal isn't just to win one round and quiet some of those doubters from what happened the last 2 playoffs. Their goal is to win 16 playoff games. And right now, I don't think that the defense core is constructed in a manner that can win 16 playoff games. And that's not to say the effort's not there from those guys that are in the job currently. I just think that there's so many good teams and around the league that it would be hard for that group to, and again, now you're talking about the sustainability of sticking through a 3-month grind and getting to the top of that mountain and surviving injuries and all those other things. So I just think it's very simple. They're going to be looking for an upgrade, but they're also going to be giving both Heinola and Stanley more opportunities to show that they can be part of the solution. And again, just quickly, you touched on it with Ville. And I'm not down on Ville Heinola, but I'm with you. Like, if you're an offensive guy, Ville's not going to be in the lineup and be asked to shut down the opponent. He's going to be asked to do a good job defensively and play within the structure, but he's not going to be a defensive defenseman for the Jets. He's going to have to add some offense. So that hasn't been happening. I didn't expect it to happen overnight, given the injuries that he's had and the time that he's missed. But if you want to win the job, you have to, show out a little bit. You have to not only show you can be trusted defensively, but you got to add a little bit of that offense. Be the second wave on the rush. Especially, we've known this since Rick Bowness came here. They want offense from the defense. And, Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk doing a great job at it, but they need a little bit more. And that's where Ville can give them a bit of that once he gets confident. And again, some people are saying it's chicken and egg. Well, how can you do it if you're not playing enough? Well, you also have to force your way into that discussion if you're Ville Heinola. And that's, I think, what we're going to be seeing here as he gets a little bit more and more comfortable as he works his way back.
Well, for sure. And I'll say this. Whether these guys realized it or not, there's a timeline to this. And to me, that timeline is the duration of Dylan Sandberg's injury. And when Dylan Sandberg is back, Hayden Fleury, I don't think, is coming out of the lineup, and maybe for a game here or there. But this is the time when one of or both of these young men are in the lineup right now. And there's no way that the organization can do anything other than judge them on where the players are right now. And, in particular for Stanley, who has played the majority of the games from there, the sand is coming out of the hourglass now when Sandberg comes back. And I guess the other question about this, Ken, is, we do know that the Jets will have interest in a blue liner. I kind of wonder whether they, much like they did last year, acting early and getting Sean Monahan in the fold, whether something might happen earlier in 2025 to add to that blue line that gives them a chance to play together more so and kind of really establish it, as opposed to doing it right at the deadline and then, having 18, 20 games to sort of figure it out and get things ready. And that, again, should put to the urgency for both of these young guys. Like, opportunities aren't guaranteed right now. I know to some it kind of seems that way. That can change very, very quickly. It will change without a doubt when Sandberg is back. And if you add another defenseman that could potentially be into your top 4 at that mix, those opportunities might be over.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we're going to be watching, Huss. Is Kevin Cheveldayoff looking for let's just use an example of, the tire fire that is the Buffalo Sabres? Like, are the Jets going to be looking at a Connor Clifton, who is a guy who really stood out in that game a couple weeks back as a third pairing physical guy that kills penalties? Or are you looking for a top 4 defenseman that could potentially, shuffle the deck a little bit in terms of who's partners with whom, which side do they play? Again, we know that Cam Fowler was a player who was of interest to the Jets at various points over his career. Now he goes to a Central Division rival. He's off the board. Alexander Carrier is a guy who Nick Kyprios has mentioned again. And we know the Jets have had interest in him in the past, including last year at the deadline before Barry Trotz decided not to sell. So if he's suddenly on the market at a pretty reasonable number for 2 more years, he makes a lot of sense. Now, would you be using him in a shutdown pairing with Dylan Sandberg, or would you be using him on the third pairing, with either Stanley Heinola or Hayden Fleury? Those are questions that we're wondering about. Are you taking an even bigger swing? And the thing about the preemptive strike with Monahan, Huss, the big thing there is the salary, right? So if you're trying to get a top 4 D-man, not a lot of top 4 D-men are available, and the Jets would have room. They'll have room at the deadline, but the way the injury things have gone, the Jets wanting to have a 22-man roster and banking all this extra money, that just hasn't been the case for them this year. They still will have room to add a significant piece. But again, I know a lot of people on your show have been wondering about Trouba. I mean, would Trouba check a lot of the boxes for what the defense pairing is or defense core has been missing a bit? For sure. But they can't do it at $8 million, and they probably can't do it at $6 million with 25% retention. It would have to be 50% probably, and even then, there's going to be a little bit of gymnastics on the salary cap side required and money moving out. So it's going to be interesting on a lot of fronts, Huss. I do expect the Jets to add. I mean, we expect them to add one. I mean, some people are saying maybe the Jets add 2 defensemen. Again, that would be something that would depend on what's available and at what cost. Back to our earlier conversation. Because of what we saw from Chibrikov, maybe there's a safety net there. Whereas last year, the Jets not only got Monahan, they felt that they had to get Toffoli because of the slump that Perfetti went through. Now Chibrikov maybe gives you a little bit of insulation, and maybe you don't have to add up front. But I would still say, Huss, the Jets are probably still looking at a second line center as a potential ad, right?
Hey, just quickly on the way out, Hammer's coming up right away.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we spent a lot of talk about size and
Yep.
Do you think the Jets, I mean, if they want a guy that is 6'7", that actually plays physical and might be maybe legitimately tougher, do you think they might be interested in Desharnais at all? Who's
Absolutely,
sort of
yes, Huss.
on the
Yes.
outs in Vancouver?
And sorry, that's a name that I should have mentioned right off the top. And yes, I mean, we know that Elliot Friedman has said that the fit hasn't been great there. We always talk about playoff experience, Huss, and this is a guy who went all the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final last year. He's a big penalty killer, not afraid, very physical, and he uses his frame. Took him a while to get there, but this is a guy who plays with a ton of edge. Again, is Vancouver going to be looking to help someone they might have to face in the playoffs? I mean, I'm not sure if that's a deterrent, but I would say that Desharnais would be a perfect example of looking for an upgrade in the third pairing. I mean, I don't think he would be playing in the top 4 for the Jets, but he would be a third pairing guy. And again, then do they think about having him with Fleury, or do you go Twin Towers with Logan Stanley? And maybe Logan Stanley plays bigger if there's another guy playing big beside him, right? I mean, that would be the other.
Show him how it's done.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like if there's another guy as the initiator, sometimes you have no choice but to get involved physically. So I definitely think it would be of someone that they look at. I mean, Carrier is someone they've looked at a little bit longer than him. But I definitely do think it would be something that would be under consideration for sure. But I mean, that's the beauty. I mean, every name me one contender outside of Vegas that isn't looking to upgrade their defense core. I mean, they got Ben Hutton sitting there as their number 7. I don't see a lot of other guys that are in that scenario or in that situation. I mean, not a lot of teams aren't looking to upgrade their defense. So you can identify somebody, but you have to also go and win the bidding for him because other teams are interested.
No, it's a great stuff. Hey, listen, maybe get a nap in. We'll look forward to.
I feel fresh today, Huss. I feel fresh.
Now, will you feel fresh at 1 a.m? That's the question, Ken. I'm trying once again, much like the general manager of this league, we are looking ahead. We are being proactive. So, anyways, have a great show tonight. I guess we'll see what's up for next week. We'll catch up at some point, but best of the season to you, Stace,
you too, man.
The Wiebe family, and great stuff as always. Enjoy this one tonight, and we'll look forward to catching up with you and Rennie on KNR.
Sounds good, Huss. Thanks for having me. Have a great visit with Hammer. I'll be talking to him when you're done with him.
Right on. All right, there is a Ken Wiebe. You know, it's funny. We got a lot of great stuff in the chat right now, so let's quickly fire up the fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number 1 spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. I can tell you as a season ticket holder, it is an incredible resource when something comes up or I've got a couple extra tickets for the game. Best customer service in the biz. And the bottom line with Fans First is that there's no fees. What you see is what you pay when you're buying tickets. That's what's coming through on the line. Unlike the Vikings tickets that basically doubled in price once the service fees got in for me a couple weeks ago. Here's to see. Okay, here's Julian again. The problem continues to how these players are deployed. How can Billy show what he can do when you're pairing him with a pylon? No, that's a little harsh. Pair him with Miller. We have seen that. I mean, listen, never mind Miller. I mean, Ken's point was perfect. I mean, he had an extended period of time in that game with Dylan DeMello. And to me, that might be the perfect opportunity for Billy. If the Jets were able to get somebody, a legitimate top 4 on the right side that was paired with Morrissey, You got Pionk and Slamberg in the 2 pairing, and then you've got Dylan DeMello in the third pairing, somewhat sheltering and helping a player like that. Like, that's probably, I think, on paper, the best chance to succeed. Chips McGee, is Rasmus Anderson a pipe dream? It's my pipe dream, I'll tell you that. I mean, that's not coming cheap. It's a pipe dream to think you're going to get him for a pick and a prospect. But man, he would be such an incredible addition. He would be number 1 on my wish list. That is for sure. Barfly, Jets already get pushed around. Playoffs will be worse. Villy is not the answer. And there was another interesting one. Yeah, Stonewall Dave. And this goes back to our conversation with Rowicki last week. We need the Flames to go on a losing streak, so Anderson and Kadri are available. And then I think this was Remis when Ken brought up the name Jacob Trouba in all caps, bring him home. I'm sure that was done somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but I know there was someone that said, here it is, Big Mo, Ken Wiebe, stop it. We do not want Trouba back. He never wanted to be here, and most Jet fans don't want him here. Stop the Trouba bandwagon. I don't care about what happened in the past. If you were telling me you could get Jacob Trouba at 50% and he's on the blue line, I would take that in a heartbeat. And listen, I think he'd have to want to come here. That would be a very interesting development. I'll say that. It would, bottom line, though, make the team better on the ice. Keep your feedback coming. Fans First, fan feedback in the chat. Brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. Just before we bring in Geoff Hamilton, big happy holidays to our friends at Princess Auto, proudly founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg, and providing the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Incredible gift ideas available as well. You can check them out online at princessauto.com. And, of course, gift cards for Princess Auto, a great gift to get those new projects going for 2025. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, Brandon as well. 3 locations to serve you in Manitoba. Lots of Christmas parties coming up this weekend. If you got to bring a bottle or you've got some whiskey lovers coming over, pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts and get your hands on the Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old high proof. It is still available at most LCs before they are gone because it was a one-shot release, and once it's gone, it's gone. It's the first ever 18-year-old whiskey from Canadian Club, offering well-known, smooth, well-balanced taste of Canadian Club Classic, carefully aged and bottled at a higher proof for a full-body tasting experience, and just won gold at the 2024 International Wine and Spirit Competition. $79.95 right now while supplies last. Pick it up at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And a big Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to and from our friends at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists in town. Doing it since 1946. If your property needs the protection of a new fence, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've also got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. Give them a buzz, 204-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. All right, a big happy holidays to our pal Geoff Hamilton of the Free Press. Hammer, what's up? Oh, wait.
You got me, Huss?
Yeah, we got you now. How's it going?
Oh, you got me? I'm good, man. I'm good. I thought I've been in the green room here for a little while. I figured maybe a marble race was in order before we got going into this. But here I am enjoying the beautiful situation you got in your green room. You guys really got things going on. Those sponsorships must be really paying out for you guys.
Yeah, well, hey, you know what? Listen, that's the thing. At this point, we wanted to make sure we had plenty of. I picked up those shortbread cookies for you at Sal's when I was there last night before the poker.
You offered a haircut, but I have one tomorrow morning, so I'm not even going to bother doing it. So yeah, man.
Hey,
Thanks
listen,
for going
let me ask you, what was your read of the NBT Fajardo trade yesterday?
Finally some action, finally some action and some closure to two teams, right? I mean, you had the trade, obviously, after the commitment to Trey Ford to be the quarterback of the future, signed a 3-year deal. I saw he was, a guy who had pictures of his family. He'd been waiting for that moment for some time. And McLeod Bethel-Thompson seemed like an okay option as a backup. Of course, was the backup all of last season to Trey Ford. Their relationship, while it seemed rocky at certain times, I'll point to that one particular example where you had McLeod Bethel-Thompson talking about how he was removed from the game for 3 plays for Trey Ford and how it threw off his game. And I'll remind those who don't remember or didn't see it. It was 3 plays in the first half, and he played the entire game outside of those 3 plays. So the fact that he, threw some dirt on Trey Ford after the game seemed weird. But that relationship is fine. But that being said, I think you need some change there. The reality is McLeod Bethel-Thompson wants to be a starting quarterback in this league. That's a fact. I mean, there's stories that have been written. I think Johnny did one over on 3 Down was tweeting about it, about how, he's okay to be the backup in Montreal. Well, yeah, he's going to have to be okay to be the backup in Montreal. Otherwise, I don't know what his options are in this league. We all of a sudden have a bit of I'm not going to say it's this quality quarterbacking carousel, but we have a situation in the CFL right now where there's more demand, more supply than demand at this point. And McLeod Bethel-Thompson isn't a young up and coming pivot. He's a guy who couldn't win a game for the Elks last year. So, it will be interesting to see what his situation is in Montreal. I think it's a good situation for both sides. I think you're swapping veterans who are unhappy in their current situation and would rather play second fiddle to an organization that they didn't play for than one that they have and have won with and played with. I guess that doesn't account for McLeod Bethel-Thompson, as I just said, but I think it's an easier pill to swallow, if you will, going to a different team and taking the backup position. So I thought it, all in all, an exciting trade and a quality one for both sides who have both decided who their number one is, and both have, as it stands, a pretty damn good plan B in case that number one goes down.
It's a very different scenario than what's happening here in Winnipeg. As we get into the new year, I'll ask you, who do you think the backup's going to be? How will the quarterback room be different in Winnipeg next year, assuming that Zach Collaros is going to be the guy under center to start the season?
I don't even think those conversations have started, Hassan. I could be wrong on that, to be sure. I don't say it because it's not something that this organization needs to be thinking about or hasn't thought about. I just think there's other things that need to be in place right now. I mean, they need to find an offensive coordinator. They still haven't hired anybody for that role. Whether that gets done before Christmas or after, we'll see it. The way the people I've been talking to sounds like it's going to be something that's done after Christmas. So again, those things can change as they often do. All of a sudden there's no news and then there's a ton of news. Of course, you need to take into consideration when you're thinking about player contracts and signing guys, how many pennies do the Bombers have left in the bank account for the 2024 salary cap after giving deals to Sergio Castillo and Stanley Bryant. Those are also information I don't have. And you have to imagine the Bombers got pretty close, like every team, to the cap in a year that they felt they could compete and win the Grey Cup. So money might be an issue on that front. Now, swapping people and ideas and names and whatnot, I'm sure that is going. But from what I gather, it's pretty quiet in Winnipeg or on the Bombers front right now. Again, that could ramp up next week, but with Christmas a week away today, I don't see much action happening over here in our neck of the woods.
How much is that affected by the departure of Ted Gavaya?
Big time. I mean, it's affected by the departure of Ted Gavaya. It's affected by the decision of Buck Pierce to leave. It's affected by the reality that the Bombers are very strategic, and I would go as far as to say paranoid who they bring into their staff. Like, they need to trust them. They need to know them well. It's also not decisions, like I said to you last week, Huss, it's also not a decision that they needed to make until now. So it's not like you're obviously thinking about potential hires and whatnot. And when I say crickets, I don't mean that nothing is happening. I just don't expect any announcements to be made. Of course, work is being done. Options and ideas are being shared. It's just whether or not, where are they going to land on somebody? And so I think, you asked me about Ted Gavaya being an issue. Yeah, I alluded to last week. I think the Bombers are looking to alter their structure. I don't know if they're going to go with 2 assistant GMs, if they might try to do other things with their scouting staff, hire somebody out in the States, or, bring more money to that role rather than having 2 formal assistant general managers to go along with Kyle Walters as the GM. So we'll see how that all falls out. But right now it is fairly quiet as far as news in Winnipeg.
Amber, let's get to this.
I have thoughts, but I mean, there's not a lot of news.
Well, listen, give us before we pivot over to the CFLPA report cards. I mean,
okay, right on.
Give us a little bit of your thoughts.
I'm just thinking of some options, right? I'm thinking of some people who could take over those roles, and you try to do it from deduction, right? You try to do it like, you look at this team and how they do their business. Well, is this offensive coordinator going to be somebody who's in-house who can be promoted, as we saw with Buck Pierce, as we saw with Jordan Younger, or are there other options out there? And then you look at the other options. Like, I'm racking my brain a lot. And unless there's somebody, you look at the people who kind of like this game of musical chairs, and a lot of the musical chairs included offensive coordinators, like a Jordan McSimic going from BC to Edmonton. So you had kind of those people. The one guy who seems to be floating out there is Jarius Jackson from Edmonton. A guy who didn't get the coaching job with the Elks, didn't get that interim tag removed. Obviously, they went with Mark Killam in Edmonton, and so he's kind of stranded there. He's an offensive guy. How many, would he be an option? And then, because I just don't know how many more people outside might be, options for that role. I mean, there are some bodies for sure. There's Costanza in Toronto. There's different, people who have. Hey,
let me ask you this: how involved and how important is Zach Collaros in the division?
It's a great question. I think he is. Look, there needs to be a separation between management and player, whether you're a team that went to the Grey Cup 5 straight years in a row and won a couple, or if you're a team that's constantly trying to make the playoffs and you have a number one quarterback. Of course, you're going to talk. If you are a good organization, if you have trust and respect in your quarterback, I think it's only prudent business to get their opinion somewhat, especially if there's somebody like Zach Collaros who has dominated in this league, has played for a handful of teams, who knows football IQ, X's and O's arguably better than anybody. Why wouldn't you want his opinion, his advice? So I definitely, and I don't think it stops there. Now, I don't think that, again, I want to reiterate, I don't think the Bombers go and do a survey with their 5 favorite guys and find out what it is. But I also think there's an environment in Winnipeg where some players aren't afraid to share their opinion, whether it's being asked or not. So I think there's lots of conversation. I'm sure there's lots of talk with Zach Collaros and other members of the offense, trusted members of the offense. And again, not like advice, more insight, more, hey, we're thinking about this guy. Do you have any history with him? Do you know anybody who knows him? Like, a little bit of the recruiting part, as you see with players sometimes, right, in free agency. So I imagine absolutely that Zach Collaros is being talked to, and his words are being taken seriously. That being said, it is management's decision, and it will fall on Kyle Walters and company to pull the trigger on whatever direction they do go.
Well, I'm kind of with you. I think this will get a little quiet over the course of the next week and a bit, but big decisions to be made, and everyone else is getting after it right now. And, because of the loss of Gavaya and Buck Pierce, there is a little bit of catch-up to be playing. Just one more very quickly on that. I couldn't believe watching Chris Strevler at the walkthrough at the Grey Cup.
I know.
As to he was running around doing apparently can't remember who was reporting that he was doing a bunch of box jumps and stuff.
I saw it online. I saw him jumping. It was like
so. What are the chances that Strevler is back and it's Collaros Strevler again?
Great question. I'm coming from two places on that, Huss. I'm coming from, and I hate to say it, kind of common sense, and I'm coming from loyalty sides, right? And I'm trying to put myself in the Bombers' mind space. And on the one hand of loyalty, we've seen it before. Chris Strevler is not not an older player, for instance, like Adam Bighill with the signing of Tony Jones. I think that ultimately spells the end of Bighill's run in Winnipeg, or we'll see what happens out of that, whether he can get a contract or whether, whatever that could look like. But Chris Streveler's not, he's not in that situation where you're wondering how much he might be able to give. The common sense part comes to, well, do you want to invest like you did last year in a backup quarterback who, until he got injured, you hadn't even been using in the passing game? So, I mean, it seemed bizarre to, it didn't seem bizarre when it seemed a little bizarre when they signed him, but it was overshadowed by the excitement of a guy who, and I'll say it to this day, I don't know if there is a more loved Bomber in this era, especially for somebody who wasn't here as long as most of the guys that are recognized in this, winning era, if you will, or Grey Cup era. But he's a guy that is just beloved here. So like that made sense at the beginning. But then when you saw how they were utilizing him, and yeah, he was pretty darn good at the short yardage until he wasn't in week 8 against Toronto. But do you really want to spend that much money for a guy that, could easily do that? A Dakota Prue Cup could have done that for probably half the money. So that's the other question here. I don't know what the answer is. Part of me with Chris having a baby on the way, and I didn't think that he would want to come back to Winnipeg just as he started a family. Like, I'm not trying to tell him what he should or shouldn't be doing, but I don't have a child, but everyone I know who's had one, it's a tough go that first year. So that's a lot to juggle, and then have the rehab on top of it. But that doesn't seem to be an issue. Like, I think he still wants to play, and I still think he wants to play in Winnipeg. So, I think it's a little unfair to me to say common sense one angle and loyalty on the other. There is some sense to bringing a guy like Chris Streveler back. I just don't think it makes sense at the dollars and cents that they paid him this past season.
Okay, listen, before we go, let's talk about this. I was really looking forward to see the first ever CFLPA.
You say that. Did you know it was happening? Like, it came to me as a surprise. Like, I didn't know that they were issuing report cards. Was that something I dropped the ball on, or what did I?
I had heard that they were going to do that, or they were in the process of doing that.
It
and
vaguely sounds familiar, but it shocked me as it came out. Like, I didn't know they were doing. I think it's a brilliant idea. But
Yeah,
anyways,
well, I mean, I think there was some talk a year ago because the NFL does this every year, and they're like, actually, maybe we should do it, and well, they have done it, and. Listen, I was expecting the Bombers would be at or near the top of most of these, just because we know the way these players are treated. I'll just give a quick rundown of the grades to the Bombers. Football ops, B+, management and admin, B-, training and medical staff, B+, equipment, A-, family treatment, B-, nutrition and diet, C+, which was still second in the league. Only the Ticats had a B. Team travel was C+, and training camp was C. A few of the comments, again, from players, these are anonymous. I believe Winnipeg does a great job overall. Of course, some things can be better. A funny one, I believe we have very poor travel out of Winnipeg for away games, placed in a very small transport plane with limited seating and little legroom. We were fed cookies with goldfish and chips. It is very uncomfortable, and everyone I know on the team dreads the away games. Great locker room. A shorter one, but on the same topic. Our plane is terrible and falling apart. And then this is the best organization.
I said you're burying the lead.
Yeah, the best organization. I can't be happier to be here. Travel is worse than single A baseball.
That's what I was afraid.
Winnipeg does a great job. So sounds like most of the things are quite good in Winnipeg. However, apparently, and this is something that we would not know, not traveling with the team, the plane seems to be a bit of an issue for some of these monsters. And I imagine certain positions are affected more than others.
Oh, I'm sure. And I can only think about, that whole thing. And obviously Wade Miller's partnerships around the city and groups, and the way he tries to maximize the dollar and all those things. And I think that being said, obviously the Bombers organization from a football standpoint is terrific. I mean, but I see these reflected. To your point, though, it wasn't like these report cards were riddled with A's and the Bombers came in under this surprising, mostly B's, a few C's, and one A or whatever. You got to understand kind of the point of these things. If you're telling your organization, first off, if you're telling them that there's nothing that they need to improve, they're not going to improve anything. This is a little bit of public shaming here. This is an ability to show other players and ultimately ownerships or presidents of respective clubs what shortfalls their organizations have. This is their way of actually saying things that will not have necessarily a negative impact on their employment with the team, right? You can't just go in and say this plane ride sucks, like you can't go in there. If anything, you're coming off giving everybody a high five, saying that was the best trip you've ever taken, hoping that you're still on the roster for next week, right? So that's one thing. The other thing too is you have to understand that I think it was just short of 500 respondents or whatever. That gives you about an average of over 50 players per team, right? So that's a lot of personalities. That's a lot of opinions. So when you look at front office executives, like I had somebody reach out to me on Twitter, Jay Rubin, I believe, actually. So it's not just somebody, a guy who's on there quite a bit. He said, well, that's kind of speaks towards the coaching staff, right? Like, I mean, is there an issue or a problem in Paradise? Now I'm putting words in his mouth there a little bit, but I just look at that as B+ is actually a pretty good grade. For a guy who's been around for longer than a decade, for a guy who's, message hasn't got stale, he's still knocking on the door of a potential A. And the other thing too is, and it's the same story for management. If you're not getting playing time, if you're not getting the opportunities you feel you're deserving of, you're going to be critical in your assessment. So if there's 50, say on average of 50 people sharing their opinion on each team, and there's only 24 starting positions on each team, that's more than half of the respondents that aren't starting, a chunk of which I assume believe they should be starting. And then there's the chunk that are starting that believe they should get even more, whether it's money or whatever. I also think there's an element of comparing it to the NFL. We know there's a lot of Americans in this league. We know there's a lot of Americans in this league who've had a cup of coffee to a great, years-long career in the NFL and know what quality is when it comes to professional football standards. They played in the best league. But I do think it's a really important thing for teams. I think it's a great thing that the CFLPA finally got on board with, and because it does give teams their assessment. I do think it's kind of funny though, because the teams that were really rocky, Huss, are the teams with the worst grades. So it's not like you got a bunch of people that are happy in Edmonton, Calgary, and BC. They're the ones where it was a lot of drama. BC had a better record than those other two teams, but we talked at length about the whole situation with Nathan Rourke and Vernon Adams. That obviously played into their grades. And you look at other things like Edmonton, like F for training camp, man. That's like if you go, Three Down has a story you can find on CFLPA, has their breakdown. They just have it in their story of what each one is. That's like your accommodations during training camp, the food they give you, essentially how they treat you during training camp. And the Chris Jones led Elks got a fat F. I think there was only 2 or 3 Fs in the entire thing, and 2 of them were on Edmonton. I think,
you know what? There was only 2, and they were both on Edmonton. The Elks. The training camp and nutrition and diet. They did also come through with D- in family treatment and in team travel. And that's the other one too. That's what I want to talk about just quickly with the Bombers. They got a B-, I believe, when it's treatment of family. If you'll recall from my feature over Grey Cup, there might be something behind that. Mike O'Shea went out of his way, players went out of their way to talk about how they were going to do less for the players. They were going to organize less for families because they wanted them to do it. They wanted them to come to them. And so I think that was like, if you read between the lines, my words, not theirs, I think the Bombers are getting fat a little bit over the last few years, right? They've had a lot to say. I think the family thing, knowing what this organization does for families, feeding them afterwards, accommodating them over Grey Cup, which I'll remind people has been 5 straight years of accommodating families for Grey Cup. There's nobody that does more for families. So if B- is the grade for Winnipeg, I see that more a reflection of maybe being spoiled over the last few years and kind of coming back to reality this past season. It's a good point. I mean, just as far as the family treatment goes in the league, Sask got a B, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Hamilton, B-, Toronto got a C+, And then there were 4 Ds. Toronto, I guess D plus, and I don't know what the difference between a D plus, D minus is, whatever.
On the verge of a C, man.
Yeah, D plus for Calgary and Montreal, D for BC, and once again Edmonton with the D minus. What's up? Are you sticking around over the holidays, or are you gallivanting in globetrotting as usual?
No, I'm actually going to stay close to home base this trip. I got a couple things that I've put on the back burner that I'm going to be taking care of. Some personal, some professional. Just getting things done and looking forward to the holiday season. So you won't see much of me outside of a story coming out this weekend. That was the one I was teasing last week that didn't quite finish through the editing process and potential look of legalese. So that will be out this weekend. And then I'm off until after Christmas, and looking forward to the new year, man. I don't know about you, but my favorite holiday of the year is New Year. I just feel like it's a clean slate. So all the stuff I did the year before just doesn't count anymore, and I can look forward to a new year. So
yeah, we're all starting at 0 in a couple of weeks, Hammer. And but hey, listen, to you in particular, thanks again for all your contributions this year. And man, I had a great time doing CFL 110 with you this year, and looking forward to some big things coming up in 2025 as we look to continue to grow it and talking 3-down football, in my humble opinion, as well as anyone else around the country does it. So it's been a real pleasure, and hopefully we'll get together off camera for some Christmas cheer at some point over the next little while.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to Kenny first. I didn't pick up his phone call. I was running errands earlier, and then I saw him on here. I figured I'd talk to him later, and then we'll have to figure out what our plan is. But always a pleasure coming on. Always a pleasure. Just seeing how great success you guys have had since, how many years ago it was now that TSN went down, and not arguably, definitely for the better for sports landscape here in the city. So to be part of that, even a small part of that, is certainly an honor. So thanks so much, Huss, and look forward to keep doing it, man.
Appreciate you, and all the best to the rest of the Hamilton clan. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much, Geoff.
Thanks. And to the viewers, you guys know you rock. Take care. Merry
All
Christmas.
right, there is Geoff Hamilton, of course, at Geoff K. Hamilton on X. And you can check out, look for Saturday. I think he'll be dropping that long-awaited piece that the lawyers have just gotten through over in the Winnipeg Free Press. All right, we're going to bring on fan favorite Geoff Fienberg in just a minute. Hey, it is the holidays. We got lots of parties. I have a feeling there'll be a few generics and 1919s enjoyed at the rink by the Winnipeg Sports Talk crew on Saturday for our holiday game. Right now, though, from Little Brown Jug, a big cheers to them.
Learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Of course, you can grab Little Brown Jug as well over at BP Polo Park and select Boston Pizzas throughout the province. And speaking of BP, gang, if you need some gift cards for the holidays, head on down to your local Boston Pizza. When you buy a $50 BP gift card, you'll receive a free $10 bonus card. And check this out. If you have a long list, if you have been negligent in taking care of the company, and you need to buy for the office, BP gift cards are a great gift. And when you buy $1,000 in gift cards or more, you'll receive an additional 10%, which ends up being a 30% bonus on gift card orders over $1,000 or more. You can get those at any of your local Boston Pizzas. And hey, listen, BP's still a great place to gather the crew together for a little holiday party. You can try the new holiday menu in the dining room, have a casual party in the sports bar, or have the BP catering team set up and serve at your office. And of course, tonight, Jets and Ducks, 9 p.m., pop by your local Boston Pizza for other great pick-up player, spin-to-win game, and a chance to win a trip for two to Boston to see the Jets and Bruins in 2025, a much-awaited rematch between those two teams. And, of course, the world champion Celtics the night before, all taken care of with deluxe hotel, airfare, and more from our friends at Boston Pizza. And hey, if you haven't finished up that shopping list and you got sports fans on the list, you can take care of it in one quick visit to Winnipeg's Sports Superstore, Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. The biggest and best selection of Winnipeg Jets merchandise on the planet, with all the jerseys, the hoodies, the hats, the toques, the t-shirts, you name it, they have it. Tons of great exclusive Bomber gear for Bomber fans, and the best from the National Hockey League, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, international soccer, and more. Skates for pros, all the way down to people just learning to skate to get ready for the winter river trails and more. And of course, tons of great gift ideas on the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side, including Yeti, Herschel, and more of the top brands around. Hit them up on Insta at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops, sale information, and great holiday gift ideas. Again, Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. All right, it's not the holiday season without a visit from our pal, a very clean cut, I will say, shaved, helmet reduction in effect. Geoff Fienberg joins us now on the program. Best of the season to you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Huss. Happy holidays to you and all your listeners.
Hey, will you be going to any big holiday parties on the weekend with big spreads and bringing Tupperware in the hopes that you might be able to stack that Tupperware and bring it home with you?
No, I am not, but I do a podcast weekly with with an individual who would hope to show up to your holiday party with empty Tupperware, signaling his eagerness to you to offer him something to bring home. Yes, thank you for listening, Huss. It was another for all the crazy things I say, I feel like by the time the show's over, I'm not even the craziest one on it. So
well, listen, I will say this. The battle between you and Tim for the most insane person yearly on the show is always an incredibly hilarious conversation. I will say, though, that in my long time of listening, and by the way, folks, you need to check it out. It's their weekly pick show, Mayo Media Network. It dropped last night. You will thank me later. That, like, Tim has said a lot of insane things in the past. Legitimately bringing up, is it appropriate to show up to a party with a Tupperware container, hoping to grab leftovers, might honestly take the cake. And I mean, the bar is set high.
Yeah, you wonder, like, it still amazes me.
People think it's a bit, but we know it's not a bit.
Yeah, no, it's not a bit. He's real. He's genuine. He didn't get out much before he met Pat, I guess. So there, it's like a baby exploring the world, Hustler.
Anyways, a little plug for that, folks. Check it out, and absolutely hilarious. I got into it last night and some more of it this morning, and I was in tears. Let's get to a little NFL. Well, actually, just quickly before we go to the NFL, did you even watch this showdown yesterday between Rory? I don't even think it was on here. I didn't know what happened until it had actually happened. Rory and Scotty Scheffler going up against Brooks and Bryson in Vegas didn't seem to have, like, for the fact that the two biggest stars on both tours were playing together head to head, this seemed to have absolutely no juice.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. It wasn't available to us in Canada. And unlike some college football game that I'd bet a lot of money on or something, I didn't really have the energy to go find an illegal stream for it either. So truth be told, I saw none of it, Hustler, full disclosure.
I saw none of it either. Apparently, Rory and Scotty won. They won $10 million in crypto, which kind of cracked me up. I guess crypto's back big time now with everything else happening around the world. There is talk, though, about this Ryder Cup style competition between LIV and the PGA Tour. I mean, this is probably a longer conversation. I do want to get into some NFL talk, but I mean, where are we at going into 2025 right now with the state of these two tours? And is anything going to change, or is this just business as usual? Should we expect it with the PGA Tour season beginning shortly?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. I don't know how much further along they are. I don't think they're that close. As for this like Live versus PGA Tour Ryder Cup, I honestly don't think that has the juice that people seem to think, other than all those players playing together in any sort of field. Like, what are they playing for? I don't think Live players, they're all mercenaries. They all took the money. Like, I don't think they care to fight for the honor of Live Golf. Do you know what I mean? Like sure, they'd want to play well, but I don't even think you can compare it. And it's such an insult because in 2025, Huss, it is a Ryder Cup year. And we are going to Bethpage Black. And that is maybe, it's as good as sport gets, in my opinion. And yes, there's a lot being made about the Americans getting paid and that for that, and that might be its own conversation. But no, I got no interest in Live versus the PGA. I don't know what they're playing for.
Yeah, well, the honor of the Live and the PGA Tour. I'm not sure how much there is on either side, to be perfectly honest, now.
Exactly. Even the PGA guys, they don't care much. Like, they're there because it works for them, and they're paid a lot of money. I don't think any of them want to die on the hill of the PGA Tour.
No, you're bang on that. But I would like, if it actually did happen. I mean, I would be like, the matchups would be amazing. But the thing that, Ryder Cup, President's Cup as well, there is a lot of emotion, everything around it, and this just would be purely manufactured. So whether that works or not. Let's get to the NFL. And there's a lot going on heading into this week in this crazy schedule with 4 teams playing on Saturday and then on Christmas Day as well. The big news, Michael Penix, Big Penix Energy, is now the starting quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. Is Kirk Cousins done? And what does this mean for Cousins moving forward from what you're hearing?
I'm not really sure what it means for Cousins. They could just straight up cut him in the offseason, and I think it'd be about in the $60 million range plus in dead cap. Or they could find a trade, eat some of the money, and it could be like less than half of that. So that'll play itself out. Ironically enough, Huss, up until that Monday night game, like sitting there on Monday night watching Atlanta, I was on the side of like, no, you got to let Kurt finish this off. Like, you just got to. You're pot committed. You just got to finish this thing off. And that was even after seeing it firsthand. He threw those 4 picks against the Chargers. Hadn't looked much better since. He's like a basketball player. It's like Steve Nash. He's throwing bounce passes. Like, it's an embarrassment. So I don't think they had a choice. So they're lucky. I think they'll catch a little lightning in the bottle with Penix.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it'll be fun to see. And I mean, they've blown it. I mean, they had the sweep over the Bucks. They had a 2-game lead. And now Pat and everyone else that's sitting on those Bucks futures are just waiting for the end of the season to get that in. Listen, Thursday night, we get right into it with your Chargers going up against the Broncos. It really seemed, and listen, I was on Tampa last week. It was a shorter turnaround for the Chargers. It looked like Justin Herbert was hurt. This team is really decimated. And then the Broncos got an absolute gift from Jonathan Taylor. I honestly believe that they lose that game, and Indy is right there in the playoffs if Taylor, how does that still happen, by the way? We had 2 guys that dropped the football before getting in. And I mean, Taylor's a veteran player, and this was crucial. I mean, it literally changed their playoff chances from 53% to 7%. If you want to touch on that, please do. And then this upcoming game on Thursday.
I mean, the Colts could have put the Chargers and the Broncos into a pretzel. Like, I'm sweating as is. I would be like buckets if the Colts had won that game. And really, everything might have been on the line with a banged-up Chargers team tomorrow night. As for that goal line stuff, the best way I've seen it described is Bill Simmons. He said it's like premature ejaculation. Like, you just got to hold out just a little longer, boys. Just a little longer. Stay on the ride. Stay on the ride just a little longer. It's good. It's a good feeling. You got to hold on. So it's inexcusable. And the Chargers were as big of a beneficiary of the Broncos win as the Broncos are. I would just say the Chargers, like, playoff probability didn't fluctuate very much because the Broncos won. Now, their wiggle room will certainly dissipate if they don't get off the mat here, Huss. But it has not been friendly weeks for the Chargers. They were probably very fortunate to beat a bad Falcon team. They took the first half off versus the Chiefs, and, they showed you signs of what they can be, and they showed you signs of what they are too often is an incomplete product, and the Buccaneers took it to them. So they're laying on the mat. They're banged up, and they got a Thursday night game. As a Chargers fan, I'm like way too nervous that the whole season's about to collapse. But Jim Harbaugh's here, and I'm expecting them to respond.
Well, I mean, the good thing is they've got this 2-game lead, which would have been a 1-game lead if Indy hadn't thrown up all over themselves, led by that drop by Taylor. And I think we can put a fork in Miami. And Cincy certainly is the most dangerous team. But all those crazy losses that they had earlier on have sort of conspired to put them in. And they don't even win a tiebreaker against either Indy or Miami. It kind of seems like the AFC's set already. And, thank God that things...
If the Chargers lose to the Broncos and the Colts beat the Titans, then, there's game on there, Huss.
I mean, there is game on.
The Chargers finish with the Patriots and the Raiders, and you're going to tell me they can't lose those games? I'm here to tell you as a Chargers fan, I don't know about that, Huss.
Listen, I appreciate you not wanting to celebrate before you're in the end zone, but they're pretty damn close. They just got to hold on.
It's a really big game because if the Chargers were to win, the Broncos would clinch with a win, a playoff spot, but they, by all intents and purposes, have. The Chargers, with the win, would do that, but then they would almost give themselves the upper hand for the 6th seed.
Yeah.
And it seems like you don't really want to start thinking about seeding, but you'd also rather, not have to play the Buffalo Bills in the first round. Despite, I love Bills Mafia, and it'd be an hour-and-a-half drive, and, I already regret thinking about having to, go to that game. But, yeah, so that could be on the line. But the Chargers, they're banged up. Herbert's banged up. It's a short week. Reinforcements are coming. They don't have any season-ending injuries, Hustler. But it just, from the outside, J.K. Dobbins feels like there was a linchpin here with his injury, because Gus Edwards is like a yard a carry, either negative or positive. And with the Herbert on his bad ankle, they're playing from these down and distances, and he doesn't have the mobility at the moment to extend the plays. And not only that, he can't pass protect. J.K. Dobbins was an excellent run blocker, so in his absence, the Chargers have struggled. But it's weird to think when Herbert was healthy, there was a 3-4 week period where the team looked like maybe they could do something. But it's a different ankle than the one from earlier in the season, Huss. So the Chargers desperately would need the bye after the game on Thursday, the mini bye, because they haven't been on bye since week 5. And that's catching up to them right now.
Well, as you mentioned, with the Patriots and Raiders around, you'd like to get the result this week, but you get that extra rest, you get it done, and then you move on to the playoffs. In my opinion, the AFC is pretty much set. We'll see what the order is. Thank God we got the results in the NFC West we did last week, because we were flirting with absolutely no drama outside of maybe who wins the NFC North in the final bit. What do you make of the West right now with the Rams? With these 2 big wins in the last couple of weeks, the Seahawks now at 8-6, and the Cardinals just 1 game behind after getting off the mat and busting up their losing streak.
Yeah, incredibly fascinating and exciting, and there's a lot of head-to-heads there that are still left to be played. I like Arizona this week. Also, Arizona's playing in New England.
Carolina.
Is that the game?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're 4-point favorites in Carolina against the.
Know who they're playing? No,
yeah,
England's playing the Patriots.
Yeah,
Arizona,
Cardinals, Panthers,
Carolina. I think Arizona's going to get right back into it. Seattle is playing Minnesota, so that's a tough draw. So there's a lot to still play for there. I actually think the Rams are going to lose this week to the Jets, Huss.
I mean, it's a bit of a kind of letdown game. Everyone expects them to win. They're 3.5-point favorites, and this would be just perfect Aaron Rodgers to all of a sudden get it together, win a couple of games that mean nothing at the end of the season. Just at the time his Enigma documentary is out on whatever streaming services it is right now.
He really is such a pain. Like, it's unbelievable, the stuff. And because it seems like all his ex-girlfriends have come out and, like, talk about how big of a pain in the ass he is. So I don't know. There's not even anyone saying a nice word about him. Anyhow, it's a separate story. He's just...
listen, we've all, I think, sort of had it with Aaron. It'll be very interesting to see whether he plays next year, whether it's New York, whether it's someone else.
He looks mobile. He looks healthier than he's been all year at this moment, Huss. There is Adams and Wilson there. I don't want to overrate anything they've done. Let's not go there. But I think it's an awkward spot game for the Rams, and I think the Jets are going to catch him off guard. I won't say off guard. Sean McVay, excellent coach. I just think the Jets are going to catch him this week. I'm in on the Jets to cover and to win.
Well, it's the first of 2 consecutive consolation Super Bowls for the Jets as well to take care to salvage their season.
That's a whole other thing, Huss. I can't even go there.
Quickly before we go, NFC North, the Lions. You want to talk about injuries? The defensive side of the football is an absolute disaster. The Vikes continue to roll at 12-2, and the Packers are no joke. I mean, I really think that the best 4 teams, and maybe this is disrespectful to Tampa because they've had some really tight losses against really good teams, but man, those 3 teams in the NFC North are strong, and you can't, as much as I would love to, you cannot overlook what the Philadelphia Eagles who've done, who actually might realistically, considering the head-to-head NFC North matchups, have the best chance of that 1 seed.
Yeah, so there was that spot in the season where we thought, like, yes, Detroit is really good and Philly's really good, but we're not really sure. Like, yeah, we'll give some credence to the Packers, but the NFC playoffs, like, it's not going to be that entertaining. Like, a bad Atlanta team's going to win the South. No one's good in the West. Complete flip there, right? Like, I'm super excited for the NFC playoffs and the parity that will ensue. I got such a I'm fangirling over how the Packers play. I have a Kevin O'Connell Coach of the Year ticket, so I know all our friends in Minnesota. You know me, Huss. It's gone better than I ever could have dreamed. Like, I'm a Sam Darnold truther. Like, I love what's happened there. Like, I'm smitten. Like, I'm a closet Vikings fan. So, yeah. I'm super excited. I can't wait, and there's more of a playoff picture to be worked out than we certainly would have thought a few weeks ago, because a lot seems settled, but clearly you assume stuff in the NFL, and you'll be wrong fast.
You know what? I'm with you as well on the Vikings. I actually went to the game 2 weeks ago when Sammy Darts dropped a 5 spot on the Falcons, which was a heck of a lot of fun. But just before we go, speaking of that, you mentioned the Coach of the Year. And I, like you, have been on KOC. Went back at it last week. Coolbet had him at 3-1, while Dan Campbell was -160. And an amazing turnaround. I mean, between the Vikings winning, the Lions losing, and in the fashion that they did with Dan Campbell once again doing something seemingly insane, an onside kick with 12 minutes left, where you have to tell the other team that you are onside kicking. Those lines at Coolbet have flipped from +300 for O'Connell and -160 for Dan Campbell to -130 for KOC and +300 for Dan Campbell. So we are looking like a pretty good spot. But I wanted to ask you this, speaking of Sam Darnold. Last week, I got in on darts at 15-1 on Comeback Player of the Year. He's now sitting at 8-1. And Joe Burrow is -1,000. You have been ahead of the curve for years, particularly last year with Flacco and being the first guy to say maybe it won't just be automatically given to Damar Hamlin. Should Sam Darnold not be a much lower number right now at Comeback Player of the Year? Is it just because Joe Burrow got hurt and he's having this great season? We know Joe Burrow's great. Is it even really a comeback?
So this is like the crazy part about this award is this like vague air around it. I don't know if you know this, Hustler, but in the summertime, the Associated Press tried to like redefine the award and like trying to acknowledge like you can't just like come back from being bad. You have to come back from like injury or some level of adversity. They reaffirmed that clarification in the middle of the season. That being said, I still believe the voters, not that they can ignore it, they can still like vote for whoever they want. They can vote for Sam Darnold. I do think he deserves it, but I'm going to say something crazy. And I never bet it, and it was like 200 to 1 when I first tweeted about it this year, and books didn't even have it because it made no sense and would go against all the rules. I actually believe that, I'm not even joking, even though I said last year what I said. Damar Hamlin should get like a 2-year eligibility for what happened. But not only that, Damar Hamlin, when in this script was Damar Hamlin ever supposed to be like an above median level NFL safety? Never in the story when he got hurt, when that tragedy scary night happened, was that this is a future like starting safety in the league that is good and can make plays. He was portrayed as like a special teams like jobber. And he's actually like above average quality safety play. He deserves 2 years of eligibility. Last year, you know, they probably wanted to name the award after him. And Flacco came in and spoiled it. But and I know he's shorter on the odds, but I honestly think he actually deserves the award.
You can still get him at 25 to 1.
Yeah.
I mean, the odds right now are a cool bet. Burrow's minus 1,000. Sammy Dart's 8 to 1. Tim Patrick 11 to 1. Then DeMar at 25. Calamari plus 35.
Don't think he's going to win, but he should win. I feel like he won't fit into their criteria. And with everything Joe Burrow's doing, like what week did he get hurt last year, Hustler?
4, 5?
Okay, yeah. So he was it's pretty extensive injury. It's all a bit of a blur to me.
You know,
it'll be hard to see that not happening, truth be told.
I mean, they're 6 and 8, although no fault to his. I mean, he really has been good, and he's dealing with a lot right now, having, you know, his house broken into, the publicity.
That's a tricky. If the owner, I know he's perpetually cheap, but if they had the guts to fire Zach Taylor, that's where Ben Johnson might like want to go.
Oh,
he's been this like coordinator. Like I'm waiting for this like perfect situation to open up. That to me is like you want an NFL off-season hot take. It's Zach Taylor out, Ben Johnson in. I don't know if Mike Brown would want to open that pocketbook, but if Ben Johnson's truly been like hawking for this perfect situation, there could be.
No, it should be good. Hey, listen, pal, I hope you and the fam have a great holiday, have a nice trip, and good luck to the Chargers on Thursday night. And who knows, maybe we'll have a third Chargers-Chiefs matchup at some point in the postseason. I'm sure you do. I'll be honest. That is a team that, I mean, it doesn't matter what the story is. Those teams play close games, and
yeah, exactly.
Your boy Herbert. Tough to beat a team 3 times in a year. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in a year. We'll see what happens.
I'm really well for the Chargers if they can pull that off. I'm shocked Mahomes is playing, but he's obviously healthy. And you guys are awesome. So
hey, you know what? If they can get the win, lock up that 1 seed and then be able to rest him, get as healthy as possible for a second-round matchup, that is the best case scenario. And it's funny. I mean, that line, I got the Chiefs at even money yesterday. I think they're
we recorded our podcast. They were 2.5-point underdogs.
Yeah, they're now 3-point favorites. Yeah. We'll get to those lines coming up in a minute. Have a great holiday season, dude. Great to have you on the show. Thanks so much.
Later, Huss. Happy holidays to everyone. Later, Remis.
You too. At G Fienberg 17, give him a follow on X, and again on YouTube. Oh, well, you can also subscribe to the podcast, Mayo Media Network. But the weekly pick show with Geoff, Pat, and Tim Anderson is a combination of football talk and slapstick comedy that is not always intended to be, but certainly is. So highly, highly recommended. Thanks to Geoff for coming on. Let me ask you this. I'll throw this out just before we get to the Coolbet lines. Why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? Happy holidays to the entire Not crew. Who do you think wins the NFC West? Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals are your options. And do you think that there is any chance that someone outside of the playoff line, being Indy, Cincinnati, or Miami, can run the table and get a playoff spot, knowing that those teams are 6-8, and the Chargers 8-6, Broncos and Ravens both 9-5? Let us know in the chat for today's Why Not question of the day. Let's get Remis in here before we get to the Coolbet lines. Always fun having Hammer on. Good stuff from Ken and Fienberg. Three of my faves on a busy show today in between two Jet games, and we go back at it tonight at 9.
Yeah, nice chatting with Ken. Still trying to figure out what it means that Dylan Coughlin was placed on waivers. I saw Kelly Moore from CJOB speculating that now the Jets tweeted out a projected lineup, but I don't know. They haven't, Scott O'Neill hasn't addressed the media because it's a back-to-back and they're on the West Coast. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's intriguing that they did put him on waivers. And
what
Kelly
was the
Moore,
lineup? Was it just the same thing as yesterday?
It was just the same as yesterday, yes.
Yeah,
So
I don't think the content guys are maybe they have needs. They got to put stuff up at certain times.
Yeah.
Pretty sure they don't have the information. So, and we've seen that be wrong plenty times before. So take that with a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. I would say this, just based on last night, knowing Chibrikov got hurt, knowing Ehlers was a possibility, I will say this right now. I'll be surprised if Nikolai Ehlers doesn't play, and I think it's probably Chibrikov that's out of the lineup after taking that puck last night. But we're going to have to wait about another 5.5 hours, I think, to find out before the guys take the ice at the Duck Pond in warm-up.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my fantasy lineups in. I don't know if Ehlers would be a sneaky play. I accidentally flashed that there. I saw Perfetti on line 2. Had a really nice pass on me getting power play one time. So, and then again with Geoff, that CFL player, I do agree. I don't know if they were grading on a curve or what, but it seemed like all the grades for everything were low. Not a lot of A's given. Interesting to hear it complain that compare the Bomber plane to single A baseball where they ride a bus for 14 hours. So,
I said yesterday, those guys should talk to a few of the Bombers. Ask Jason Vega about travel with the Bombers. I mean, guys that were playing in the early 2000s, through the Joe Mack era. I can tell you that it's a hell of a lot better right now under Wade Miller, and they've done a lot to. At that point, the Bombers are probably lucky the CFLPA didn't do the report cards. A very different story right now with the way the team handles their business. Let's get over to Coolbet. Thanks again to everyone that joined us for the poker tourney last night. Not a great performance by myself or Michael Remis. No. Did see Cowboy hanging in there, Randy D in the mix as well, Eagle Eyes, a few of the other WSTers in there. We'll do another one soon in January at some point, although very, very busy month for the Winnipeg Jets at home. But it actually was great to have it on starting at 9 and the game starting at 9:30. It was a kind of fun to do both at the same time. We got 5 games tonight in the NHL, starting it off in the Motor City with the Philadelphia Flyers taking on the Detroit Red Wings. Detroit, a slight home favorite at -115. The Flyers are -102. The Leafs are in Dallas to take on the Stars. Toronto +115. Dallas -135 home favorites. We'll all be pulling for Paul Maurice tonight. The Panthers are in Minnesota to take on the Wild. Panthers a minus 147 favorite. Wild, despite their record, a plus 125 home underdog tonight. The Vancouver Canucks, plus 103 in Utah against the Hockey Club, minus 122 for Utah. And the Jets and Ducks. Jets playing on the second end of back-to-back, still a favorite. They'd probably be a much bigger favorite if things were different, and certainly if Connor Hellebuck was in net. We're expecting Eric Comrie. Winnipeg minus 182, Anaheim plus 153. Total is 6. And if you like the Jets on the puck line, it's minus 1 at minus 1.5 to win by 2, plus 135. As far as some of the game props for tonight, man, Kyle Connor was good last night, Remo. No surprise. He is the by far the most likely player to score tonight. Plus 106 before his line mates Gabriel Velarde and Mark Scheifele come in at plus 173.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that shot. He's on pace for a lot of goals this year, they're saying on the broadcast. So he's on the power play 1. He's the shooter. Like that, I still like... maybe this is a game where the third line chips in. Niederreiter plus 305 could be interesting. And I always like Perfetti's on power play 1. The offensive skill. We'll see how. I'm curious what kind of Jets team shows up. I think it's gonna be a very tight game. I don't think. I
like the fact that you mentioned Nino. I'm actually with you, and I think maybe we will touch that at more than 3-1 at plus 305. I think Nino's been so close lately. He had that one. That rush last night where you showed his speed and then put the shoulder down and took it right to the net. And that's when that line is at its best. And we've seen some good examples of that lately. I mean, the Adam Lowry just backing through the rookie defender on the Habs into the slot and cashing was a nice one. And then again, they weren't rewarded on that play by Nino Niederreiter, but was at the end with the captain with his 9th of the year going on. So Nino's plus 305, Cole Perfetti's plus 275. Who else do we have here? We got Vlad at plus 375 and J-Mo, Josh Morrissey, 6-1 to score. We got point props and more with the late game in Jake's way. I don't think we'll get up a WST parlay tonight, but we can do a little bet builder. And if we wanted to do a bet builder and take the Jets to win and Nino Niederreiter to score a goal, you get that. That's to 4-1 right there. So just Jets to win and a Nino Niederreiter goal is plus 400. And then obviously you can add a little bit more. It's always fun to kind of screw around in the bet builder to put your own kind of same gamer together as well. But that's all up there at Coolbet right now. Kind of referenced this when I was talking with Geoff. The Chargers are 2.5 point favorites against the Broncos tomorrow night at home. Pretty banged up though, minus 147. Denver's plus 125. And how about that, Reem? Yesterday, I'm surprised the books got caught like this because. I know, Mahomes was hurt and didn't return to the game. But, I mean, if you were watching the game, they had a 2-touchdown lead. There was no real reason to put him back in. I think Andy Reid, to be honest, was a little careless with the way he called the second half. The amount of passing they did, the amount of hits that Mahomes took, that line is still, the tackle position is still a real concern for KC. But, we saw the Chiefs as 2-point home underdogs. And then Mahomes was a full participant in practice and said he looks like he's going to play, and he will if he can. A 5-point swing in the point spread since yesterday when this was out. Chiefs now 3-point favorites and minus 167. To put into perspective, I bet the Chiefs yesterday at minus 102.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious how Houston looks in this game, man. C.J. Stroud last year, he was the new, he's had the great rookie season. He thought he was going to be the next quarterback, but really struggled. I don't know if it's because they're going more with the run game. If you pick Tank Dell in fantasy, you're probably disappointed there. Their offense just hasn't really been there. Will they be able to keep up with the Chiefs? So, 3 points.
Chiefs defense coming off with 6 turnovers against Cleveland. By the way, Jameis out as the starting quarterback in Cleveland.
Disappointing.
A couple of others. Wow, we're getting 6.5 right now with the Steelers. in Baltimore on Saturday. I know they lost last week to the Eagles. And they didn't look great doing it. I will be on Pittsburgh in this game. Pittsburgh, I think, is 8-1 in their last 9 against Baltimore. And these teams know each other so well. This will be another street fight. And that game, by the way, is going to be before the Jets-Minnesota game. So maybe we'll see. I might pop by our BP there at City Place and watch the first half of that game before heading upstairs and meeting everybody for the game. And if you missed it earlier, I mentioned this, but we sold out of our tickets for WST night, but we've added some more. Shout out to the Jets for grabbing a few more for us. So if you want to join us for the holiday game on Saturday, go to winnipegjets.com/WST and grab those tickets before they are gone.
Hey, we got an email saying who has tickets with us. I see a couple chatters. A bit of change of location from where it's been in the past. Emily from the Jets giving us a heads up, and they'll send her an email to everyone that our pregame mingle is now in the Michelob Ultra fan deck on Saturday. Before we were in the hangar bar outside 316, and our entrance is the Portage and Donald entrance. So what the fan deck is, that's like on the second floor there.
Yeah.
Or sorry, on the side. Or sorry, second level or third floor technically,
That's
right?
just basically the Portage Avenue side of the 300 level.
That's right. So
yeah, if you have other tickets, pop by there beforehand if you come in. Who knows? That might mean a little bit of extra time at BP before the game. But listen, we're in 316. If you've got tickets elsewhere, come by the hangar bar outside 316. We will certainly be in that area at the intermissions. And if you come there early, Michelob Fan Deck, there you go. That is where we will be for the game tonight. Again, just to wrap the lines, we do have a exclusive that we put together for tonight. I guess, is it in the exclusives? It must be. There's the Lock Shop Partner Parlay. You got it right there.
Panthers, Canucks.
Wait a second. We are missing. This is also supposed to have the under for the Dallas-Minnesota game.
Okay.
I don't know whether we'll get that changed, but if you like a Panthers Canuck parlay, it's boosted to plus 277. We were going to add the under on that, but maybe that got lost in translation. Maybe this is a sign that there's going to be tons of goals in the Leafs-Dallas game, and we should just roll with it. So, again, just a 2-gamer, but it's boosted to plus 277, Florida and Vancouver. Sure would be nice to see the Panthers get a win over the Minnesota Wild, which would give the Jets a little bit more cushion at the top of the Central Division. But you know what? Just with everything happening, the loss to Vegas, the win over San Jose Ream, Wild still have 2 games in hand, but the Jets have a 3-point lead. Jets now in even games played with the Avalanche, an 11-point lead on Colorado. And they're 9 up on Dallas, although Dallas has 3 games in hand. But the fact that they played the amount of hockey they have so far and fared the way they have, I think is going to be something that will really benefit them later on in the season, as some of these teams have to make it up in a very compacted schedule outside of the 4 nations.
Yeah, everyone's going through. I know Ottawa, they're on a season-long 9-game road trip right now, and they're actually in one of the wild card slots. As
Ottawa's on a heater, man. Linus Ullmark's looking like doing his best Connor Hellebuck impression.
Yeah, Linus Ullmark, he's on a bit of a heater. So good for them. But here in the Central Division, the Jets, yes, 47 points in first, but they got 2 games on Minnesota, 3 on Dallas. But the Jets can erase one of those games with a win over Minnesota on Saturday. Goal differential, very strong, well-positioned here to be in a playoff spot come April. But we are here mid-December, Anaheim tonight. I'm looking forward to a lot of games tonight, too, and I did like some of those, where was it? Some of those picks there on the parlays. Where was there? Was one with Connor and Matthews to score, Perfetti and Nylander to get a point. These combo cards, I got to go through them.
Yeah, there's always some good ones up there, and you never know what else might pop out. I did the final show with Dusty. He's off for a couple weeks, but I will be back in the lock shop tomorrow with Pat. we'll get ready for that Thursday nighter before Winnipeg Sports Talk. And I guess tomorrow Rowicki's jumping on with us.
Mm-hmm. And we'll do a World Junior preview with Scott Wheeler of The Athletic. Probably touch on, I'm sure, he's seen a lot of Kevin He, Kieran Walton, getting a lot of attention for the way they've played this year after being drafted by the Winnipeg Jets. So I'm excited to have Scott on Tee Up World Junior. Braden Yeager representing, playing for Canada.
And of course, Manitoba's Carson Bjarnason, Wheaties netminder. We'll see. We'll ask Scott about what he thinks the chances are that he'll maybe be the guy that gets the first opportunity for Canada at the tournament. So that's all coming up tomorrow. We'll tee up the Thursday nighter as well. And of course, recap tonight's end to this quick 2-game roadie with the moms in tow. Do it for your mamas, boys. Make it happen tonight. Ducks, Jets, 9:00 p.m. Of course, Kenny and Randy will go later on after the show. IC will fire it up right after. So pop by and say hi to those fellas. And whatever you do, make sure you join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And we will have a show Friday. And we'll roll out. I'm going to tease this right now. We have a big-time Christmas gift for you folks. And we will unwrap it next week when most of the other shows are down. We've got something that I think you're going to love, and it is our Christmas gift from myself and Michael to our loyal listeners. We've been working on some great content for the times that we're sort of off, so look forward to next week. Trust me on that one. We've got something under the tree for all of you listeners on times when we're normally not there. That is going to do it for us today. Thanks to great guests, some of our faves today, Wiebe, Hammer, Fienberg. Great having them on the show. Enjoy the game tonight, everybody. Thanks for being with us. And by the way, a great Christmas gift this year is a subscription on YouTube to Winnipeg Sports Talk. It is free. When you get to your Christmas gathering, get everybody's phones, get them to subscribe, and invite them to join the crew. And again, would love to see you on Saturday with us at our holiday game and gathering against the Minnesota Wild of all teams. WinnipegJets.com/WST. Get those tickets before they're gone. We sold out the first batch and just added a few more. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Enjoy tonight's game. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 right here on WST. Thanks to all of our sponsors, and have a great night.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.